Good evening, folks.
I move that this council certify by a recorded vote that to the best of each council member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identified in the motion convening the closed session were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed session.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are we all logged in to vote?
Yes.
All right, please
So
go ahead
I'll
and cast your
initiate the
vote.
vote.
Figure out how to get back to it.
I can mark it for you too.
Oh, that's just, boys, I'm a yes.
Okay.
All right, and the motion passes 4-0. Just as a brief recap, Mayor Wade is out of town this week, so that's why I'm up here. Hello. During closed session, we voted to appoint Bridget Moss to the at-large position on the CRHA board.
Or you would have to do it
sorry.
as a motion.
Right. We discussed that. I will entertain a motion.
I would move we appoint Bridget Moss to the CIHA board.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Yes.
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 All right, the motion passes. Welcome, Bridget.
And
Can you talk a little louder? Yeah.
Test, test.
Yeah.
All right, sorry about that. Thanks for letting me know. And now we will begin our business meeting with a moment of silence. All right, thanks, everyone. Are there any announcements? This side?
Nope.
Any announcements, Michael? Okay, thanks. I just have a couple. I wanted to note that there's no Monday meeting the first Monday of July, but there will be. Our next council meeting is July 20th, but several other meetings are going on in July, so just check in with the city calendar to see what's going on. Also, July is the next installment of the e-bike voucher program application period. So every quarter you can apply. So check that out on Seville Connect to find out more information about the vouchers and how to apply and what information you need to submit. And then thirdly, it's always nice to recognize the success of products of our Charlottesville school system. So I'd like to congratulate Jalen Brunson, Walker and Buford Middle School student, and his New York Knicks on their NBA championship over the weekend. Thanks. Last call for announcements. All right, wonderful. We'll now move on to Community Matters. There are some pre-registered speakers, and then there's going to be, there's 7 pre-registered, and then some folks on the wait list that will take up that 8th spot, and then 8 additional slots for speakers on Community Matters. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to speak on topics that are not listed as public hearings. So if your item is coming later in the agenda as a public hearing, please save your comments for that. If it's not, then please, you are welcome to speak now. I will just remind everyone that it is a 3-minute limit, and that goes across the board for everybody, and your time will be noted on the screens. I will now open the floor to pre-registered speakers. Is Heidi Berteau available? Thank you.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Heidi Divya-Bertu. We know you are very busy with many issues and projects. You have before you handouts that we gave you. Yet we would like to remind you of the sustained efforts of the Court Square Enslavement Memorial Group to restore the slate plaque to 0 Park Street that honored the site of slave auction block. Originally placed in 1962 by council, it was removed in 2002 by council. We ask you to restore it now in 2026, an action well within your power. We urge you to make an exception rather than to make us wait for the formation of the Arts Council. Please know that we are encouraged that you are creating a process that will expedite requests such as ours. In January, Deputy City Manager Freeze suggested that as an alternative to waiting another 2 years for the creation of the Arts Commission, that this group could ask the City Council to vote. Therefore, per Mr. Freeze, would you please vote yes to remove this project along now? We are encouraged by your recent vote, and I quote, "On Monday, May 18th, Charlottesville City Council unanimously endorsed the potential use of city parks for Swords into Plowshares project, which is also about public spaces where Charlottesville's history has been made, covered up, and remembered. The Plowshares project is a very involved initiative with extensive community engagement. Replacing the slate historical marker also enjoys community endorsement. But in contrast to the Plowshares undertaking, it is a very simple endeavor and made more simple by your affirmation. Mayor Wade's most recent request of our group was to get approval from UVA descendants of enslaved communities, the Jefferson School, and Swords into Plowshares, which was delivered to you by Jessica Harris, Director of UVA Descendants, by email on April 20th. On March 3rd, 2025, while unveiling the historic signage titled Enslavement at Court Square, Councilor Snook emphasized the importance of our history and economy for the coming decade of revolution tourism. Councilor Fleischer recently shared her concern over the atrocity, which was the half-century auctioning away thousands of local captives to distant and brutal misery. The restoration of the auction block plaque will provide a healing of this historic erasure and will inform the revolution tourists arriving in July 2026. The reading of this proposal will be continued by Mike Henrietta. Unfortunately, he's number 8 on the wait list, except I think he's been moved up. So thank you for listening.
Thanks very much. Next, we have Laura Sargani.
Got my name right, thank you. My name is Laura Sargani, and I'm a community member. I'm sure the council is getting used to seeing me at this point, and I genuinely wish that I was coming to you again under better circumstances. 10 days ago, I was sharing a potluck dinner with housed and unhoused friends to discuss the immediate and ongoing needs of our neighbors camping along the Ravenna Trail. Among them was my camping friend Tony, who I've known and worked with for about a year. Tony was telling us that he would like to attend this meeting tonight to express his frustration about how the city has treated him. Sadly, Tony could not make it to this meeting because he passed away last week. I do not think that I could do justice in representing all of his experiences or thoughts, but I can tell you that I believe the city has failed him and that it is failing a lot of people. People like us, people with children and families and friends and stories of struggle, people who are our neighbors. I want to believe that this city is capable of building a community of care instead of perpetuating systems of harm. And because I want to believe that, I'm going to share the things that we talked about at that potluck, including Tony's suggestions for how we could improve the conditions for our most vulnerable community members. In collaboration as housed and unhoused neighbors, we assert that the city should take the following actions for the well-being of our community. Portable toilets and access to clean water for drinking and bathing. I understand the city has been in discussions about this, but there's been enough discussion, there needs to be movement. With the increasing heat of summer and potential spread of diseases, this is a major risk to health and safety every day that passes. Dumpsters and trash cans. With 50 to 100 people now living along the Ravenna Trail, they need their own rolling trash cans and dumpsters for disposal of trash. Like any neighborhood, they are a neighborhood just like yours. The city previously placed a dumpster at the Freebridge location, which demonstrates they can do this. You've already done it. If the city is concerned about the concentration of campers in an area, then the city should increase the number of camping areas available with access to resources instead of policing. No forced displacement, period. The low barrier shelter project should go forward with input from the unhoused community, and it should serve as transitional housing with more permanent affordable housing being created, providing ongoing services that help people stay sheltered. And the city needs to prevent housing discrimination and barriers to shelter, such as screening for drug use or previous incarceration. Human rights mean housing. Housing is a human right. Moreover, the city should take UVA to task for its discrimination against unhoused patients, turning them back out into the streets directly after medical procedures rather than giving them shelter to recover. This is disgraceful, and I know people that this has happened to that I'm working with right now. The city also needs to acknowledge the role that policing has played in creating and exacerbating homelessness and stop targeting harassment of unhoused neighbors. With unnecessary arrests for petty infractions, the community requires care, not cops. And lastly, the city needs to acknowledge how corporate development has displaced residents from once affordable neighborhoods and fueled homelessness. The city needs to stand up to developers and put a moratorium on these greed-fueled projects that hollow out our community.
Thank you.
With Tony not able to be here tonight, I feel I owe it to him to remind us all that it is our responsibility and our job, every one of us, to create that community of care. Thank you.
Thank you. Ludwig Kuttner?
Hi, my name is Ludwig Kuttner. I live on Water Street and work on the mall. When I came to Charlottesville in 1981, the downtown mall was a disaster and nobody came downtown. There were traffic problems, homeless problems, property values were down, property selling between $20,000 and $40,000, about a third of them. One building, the city foreclosed for the city. The owners were not willing to take taxes, walked away, and the city took over the property and offered the property for free if somebody would build. One of the reasons of the difficult downtown was Water Street and Market Street were one-way streets, which made maneuvering downtown difficult. So why do we want to go and repeat past mistakes? How easily traffic flows critical is the success of downtown Charlottesville. I think there is a group that perceives it's dangerous downtown. But the question is, do we have statistics of how many bikers are actually riding downtown every day? Do we have statistics of how many accidents have there been? Exactly where are these accidents occurring and what is causing these accidents? I would be extremely surprised to learn that a two-way Water Street is the heart of the problem. And our mayor rides scootered downtown, and I have never seen that he was scared. I ride my scooter all the time, and I never have felt unsafe. I rode my bicycle in New York for 20 years. That was a little more different. In fact, the drivers of cars here are extremely careful, and I hope that you can spend time out in the street and see what it is. If there's a bicycle going up Water Street, the car stays behind and never even pass them, and are extremely successful. So I think changing Water Street into a one-way street could have disastrous effects and may hold us back. And as we just heard, maybe taxes go down and we can't afford to support homeless people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Joan Fenton?
I'm Joan Fenton. I have property and business downtown. In 1996, the Office of Economic Development put together a committee of business owners, property owners, city staff, department heads, 2 members of council to find out what would help downtown because it was not thriving. This is 30 years ago. And the major thing that we asked for was to make Water Street 2 ways, and it was successful. It had a big impact on downtown. It impacted visibility, it increased traffic, and it worked. And they did their due diligence. They looked at how to do it, what the impact would be before they do it. And I believe that this proposal, you have not done your due diligence. VDOT has not looked at the impact this would have on South Street. You're going to send all that traffic onto South Street. And when you try to turn left onto 2nd Street, what's going to happen? It's going to back up. Already, when they try to make a delivery on South Street and a truck stops, you can't get through. When the train comes through, you can't get through. If you're going to do something like this, you need to know what the impact's going to do before you do it, and you should at least take the time to find out what it is. Your traffic department has not looked at this, and your Department of Economic Development has not looked at the economic impact. And I think both of those are failures. And I think for you to take this action without understanding the consequence is a failure of you to do your duty. And I really feel that the city often makes mistakes because they don't take the time to find out what's going to happen afterwards. And I think you need to pause, find out what's going on, and if you really think this is a good idea, then close Water Street in one direction for a month and see what the impact is. And go stand there and watch the traffic back up. And watch on camera and see what happens at rush hour when nobody can get through. And drive with somebody who's a tourist or somebody trying to find their way downtown when they're lost and can't find their way down here. And think about the economic impact, because if you want to fund all those things that she's asking for that you should fund, then you need the money that you get from downtown. So please think twice before you go ahead and do this without knowing the consequence. Thank you.
Thank you. Greer Achenbach?
Good evening. My name is Greer Achenbach. I am also here tonight to urge you not to move the STAR study proposal forward. So this year we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Charlottesville Downtown Mall. This is a huge milestone, a major triumph. But I encourage you to remember history. During the urban renewal era, over 200 pedestrian malls were built across America, but 89% of them failed. The ones that survived, like ours, did so because of a delicate ecosystem built on accessible parking, intuitive traffic flow, and clear wayfinding. Altering Water Street disrupts the primary artery that keeps this ecosystem alive. From an economic development standpoint, the decision is highly concerning. A significant portion of our downtown retail, fine dining, and vibrant art spaces rely heavily on baby boomers, older population, and tourists. These individuals directly fuel our local economy. By upending established traffic patterns, you aren't just creating a minor inconvenience, you're creating a cognitive barrier. When navigating downtown becomes confusing, stressful, or unpredictable, the patrons won't adapt. They will simply pivot to places like Stonefield or Fifth Street Station where parking and driving are frictionless. We cannot afford to alienate customers, keeping our local businesses solvent. Furthermore, this proposal highlights a deeper, more systemic issue. If you speak to business owners, operators, and workers who make the downtown mall thrive, you will hear a consistent, heartbreaking refrain. They feel the city rarely supports their success. Whether it's infrastructure maintenance, safety concerns, or parking management, our business community constantly feels like they're fighting against City Hall instead of partnering with them. A one-way conversion on Water Street against the vocal warnings of the people whose livelihood depends on it only deepens that divide. It sends a message that experimentation matters more than local economic survival. For 50 years, the downtown mall has been a crown jewel of Charlottesville, but its continued success is not guaranteed. It requires intentional, supportive stewardship. Let's celebrate this historic anniversary and not pass anything that might trigger a decline in the pedestrian district. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Blair Williamson?
Michael Kaplan would move up to that
Oh, I see. Sorry, I was putting him at the end.
I think she's reclaimed it.
No, I'm sorry, there's, hold for a second, you'll go next. Is Michael Kaplan here? Sorry about that. It's my first time calling these. Thank you.
My name is Michael Kaplan. I'm a member of the community, and I too am here to urge you to not vote tonight on whether or not to make Water Street one way until you have more of the data essential to a knowing and well-informed decision. And can confirm that this actually solves a problem rather than merely moving the problem to another intersection. Bicycle safety and pedestrian safety are important goals for downtown. Pedestrian safety, smooth flow of traffic is important to downtown. The VDOT proposal before council defines a strategy that is focused on Ridge Street and the Water Street intersection. At the most recent VDOT meeting with the public, VDOT staff said at that meeting that they crafted the plan without considering the impact of the plan on West First, West 2nd, South Street, or 2nd Street East. That means at this time it is impossible to know whether the plan solves the problem or merely moves the problem a few blocks down the street. It's entirely possible that the plan will create more problems than it claims to fix. It's possible the plan will impair traffic flow, bicycle safety, and the downtown economy. It's possible it will create as many problems as it claims to fix. As you've heard from other people, that Water Street was one-way once before, and it had a very bad impact on the downtown economy, and that the downtown merchants urged city government to come to their rescue, and city government did, and they made it two-way again. And as Greer just said, our downtown pedestrian mall survived while most of the pedestrian malls across America failed. It's a very delicate balance, and we urge you to evaluate the data from that last time we had one-way experience to see whether one-way actually is in the best interest of our community. The downtown economy generates over 10% of city revenue, and it remains a fragile economy. The downtown economy should not be stymied by reduced vehicle access when other bike and traffic flow options exist, such as bike lanes, shared lanes, signage, and lights. The plan before you lacks sufficient demonstration that it will improve downtown traffic and bike safety. In the name of good urban planning, I urge you to postpone any vote until you have been provided the data that shows the plan's full impact throughout the downtown region. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Ms. Williamson, thank you for your patience.
Hello, thank you for allowing us to speak tonight. I'm Blair Williamson. I do have a business on the downtown mall, but my real job is I'm president of SL Williamson Company, which is a heavy highway asphalt paving company, and I've been there for 34 years, so I do have some experience in the construction traffic world. Increasing bicycle, pedestrian, and/or vehicle safety is always a good reason for transportation improvements. It's in our community's best interest to continue to look for projects that improve safety, traffic congestion, and other design needs and issues. This project is well-intentioned but fails at the basic level of looking at this intersection from a master planning perspective, as there are multiple failures that will be a result of this incomplete design. There needs to be a strategic plan for the roadways in the city and not a whack-a-mole implementation. I realize that only one project can be built at a time given money constraints, but the parts need to add up to the whole. We have to know where we're going. At the last public presentation meeting of this project, I asked if the plan would be further vetted for design issues if it were to proceed. And Sandy Shackelford, who's the project manager for VDOT, said it would not change in design, but the plans would be developed for construction. At present, this plan puts all of the eastbound traffic from Water Street, intending for Water Street, onto South Street. This street is not designed to carry this load. In addition, it dumps all of the traffic at the terminus to either cross the railroad to Garrett or get in line with the vehicles entering and exiting the parking garage on Water. This parking garage always is already congested from people coming in and out at that intersection. This project is designed as a bicycle safety improvement plan and makes assumptions that everything that is good for bicycles is good for pedestrians and vehicles. We also have the important consideration of the downtown mall and the tourist, residential, and business communities that depend on good access to the mall. At present, there is virtually no wayfinding, and finding the mall is often only achieved by driving across it by accident. Also, the two Water Street parking lots in the future Dewberry or Hotel, whatever we're going to call it, will eventually be developed, and this odd system of one-way roads will not help these businesses. Please do not give people another reason not to come downtown. Also, Don Franco, who's an engineer with Raudebusch and Gale, who has decades of experience, sent you guys an email at 5 o'clock today. You may not have seen it because you were probably in another meeting. I brought copies for you, but he has really good insight as to how this could be improved. And again, we all agree that the intersection needs to be improved, but it needs to be thoughtful, and we need to know how all of this works together. Thank you. I'm going to leave these copies for you guys, if that's all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much. Susan Kuttner?
My name is Susan Kuttner, and for the past 14 years, I have both lived and worked on the downtown mall. So I am intimately familiar with all of the issues that face downtown Charlottesville. I also happen to be a very avid biker who rides both for pleasure and to run errands. So I appreciate and am grateful to the city that they are bike-friendly and that they are concerned about bike safety, and I hope that in the future more people will begin riding their bicycles. Having said that, I believe that the bicycle community should not be the driving force behind how traffic moves downtown. We are a passionate community, but we are also a very small minority community. And as bikers, it is our responsibility to adapt to the needs of downtown Charlottesville, not the other way around. Who is the majority of the people that we should be paying attention to? It is people like me who live and work downtown, some of whom may be bikers, but the majority of who are vehicle owners. It is the people who are delivering goods and services to both the residents and the downtown businesses. They are most assuredly not bikers. And it is the tourists and the guests who come to visit downtown Charlottesville, few of whom I would guess are bikers. It is the convenience and needs of these three groups that we should have foremost in our minds as we decide what traffic patterns should be. Because if we do not have an economically vital downtown, then the same thing that has happened to most pedestrian malls across the United States will happen to us. We will end up bankrupt. I can tell you from personal daily experience that a two-way street on Water is not your problem. Water Street is not crazy busy. I cross it every single day, multiple times a day. I have never had a problem there. If I were to identify an issue that causes traffic problems downtown, I would point to the short turn lanes that exist on Water and Ridge McIntyre. There is a turn lane and there are two street options, South Street and Water Street, to turn onto. But I have often had to wait 2 or 3 lights to even make a turn because the lanes that are provided there offer a short window of opportunity. So what that means is that cars turning onto Water Street are oftentimes mixed in with the cars going straight because they can't even get to the turn lane, and the cars going straight are interrupted by the people trying to get to the turn lanes. That is what is creating a lot of friction and frustration in that particular intersection. So I would strongly recommend that whoever is in charge of traffic movement in this city take the time to go down there yourself, spend an hour in different locations at different times of day, use your own 2 eyes, and get out from behind your computers and behind the maps that you're looking at and see what the problem is. Talk to the downtown residents, talk to the downtown businesses. I'm pretty sure that you will find that the majority of those people will tell you that having a one-way street on Water will create a bigger problem than what exists right now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That is the end of pre-registered speakers. Is there anyone in the audience right now who would like to speak as well? We'll start over here, Ms. Tyree.
Hello. So the writing is pretty small, so let me take my time. My name is Terry Tyree, and today I'm here as the president of Charlottesville Community Resilience Center, or CCRC. Our mission is to strengthen individuals facing housing insecurity and related crisis by providing coordinated support services, resource navigation, emergency referrals, and community-based education that builds resilience and long-term stability. Although we are a young organization, we are proud of the impact we have already made in just a few short months. In January, we launched our Community Prayer Board workshop, creating a space for reflection and healing. In February, we hosted a Healthy Hearts, Healthy Habits educational wellness-focused event, and a Taste and Thrive, which brought community members together around healthy food, conversation, and resource sharing. In March, we facilitated a community listening session at Crescent Halls to hear directly from residents about their needs and priorities, and co-hosted a hot chocolate social that fostered community connection. April, we were pretty busy. CCRC organized the Community Resilience Egg Hunt at JMRL, bringing families together for a free family celebration. We also participated in the Great Mother Festival and partnered with the Tom Tom Foundation for Glitter and Goals event, highlighting community engagement, creativity, and resilience. In May, we launched our Dirty Word Poetry program, creating a safe space for storytelling, healing, self-expression, and community dialogue through the arts. This month, in June, we are proud to be tabling at the Black Business Expo, where we'll connect with residents, entrepreneurs, community leaders, while sharing information about our programs and services. In July, we are excited to introduce the Resilient Families Empowerment Program. This initiative is designed to support families and parents, caregivers through trauma-informed parenting, education, school readiness support, and workforce development resources and emotional wellness tools. However, I would be remiss if I did not raise the concern that many emerging grassroots organizations face. Despite securing funding and demonstrating a clear community need, finding an accessible and affordable venue for our Resilient Families Empowerment Program proved extremely difficult. We spent weeks reaching out, making calls, and seeking partnerships, and ultimately the lack of available space forced us to reduce the number of families that we could serve. This is not just a CCRC issue, it highlights a broader challenge of gatekeeping and organizational silos that cannot unintentionally limit community impact. So we know there are many underutilized community spaces throughout Charlottesville, and we encourage you all to seek guidance on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone from the middle here would like to add anything? Anyone from this side? Yes, sir. And please state your name and address. No, please go ahead.
Anyway, Mike Henrietta here. I'm continuing where Heidi Bertu left off with our Court Square Memorial Enslavement Project request. The City Historic Preservation Officer Jeffrey Werner has confirmed at the November 2025 Historic Resource Committee meeting that the auction block has been found and is secured. Surely the restoration auction block sign should already be in place before this fact is widely announced. For 24 years, our group members have worked with HRC, city managers, parks, planning, and city council. Please see the timeline record we provided. We know there is no city 2026 budget for this project. However, our group has raised funds to pay for the slate marker. Also important would be for city council to please direct HRC to meet with our group and our leaders as soon as possible to finalize the plaques, rewording, and installation. We ask you, Mr. Sanders, to schedule this vote for the 2026 July council meeting. We hope you all agree that now is the time to reinstall the long-missing slave auction block marker. A new book, The Queen's Silence, traces the extent to which British monarchs and members of the royal family invested in and defended the transatlantic trade in African captives and the expansion of colonial slavery. Please see the research insert, which shows how under Queen Anne's leadership, the South Seas Crown Colony was a central player in the transporting of enslaved captives on Royal Navy vessels and branding the Queen's crown onto the backs of at least 64,000 people. By 1702, this corporation poured vast sums into royal pockets. The cruel history is foundational to the naming of the Rivanna River and as well as Albemarle County. When Elizabeth II was asked to simply acknowledge how enslavement dividends continue even today, hers was a failure of leadership. She kept silent. We believe the City Council can break the auction block silence now. We ask you to expedite this project. This would go a long way towards healing and painful wounds of the erased and forgotten people who built this town. This will bring important transformational awareness to our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone from over here? Anyone in the room at all would like to, we have a couple spots left. All right, that is the end of Community Matters. That was our final speaker. There will be another opportunity for public comment at the end of the meeting. Thank you all for your input. If you would like to stick around for the rest of the meeting and agenda items, please do so. If you would like to exit now, I'll give us a beat before moving on, so you've got time to do that. Thank you. Ms. Thomas, can you please read the consent agenda?
Yes. Consent agenda number 3, minutes. We have the 2025 general election abstract of votes, April 8th work session, May 13th work session, and June 10th work session. Number 4, resolution to appropriate $356,805 in additional funds to the Streets and Sidewalks Division operating budget, second reading. 5, resolution to appropriate Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services Victims of Crime Act Grant Award, FY26, $123,600, second reading. 6, a resolution to appropriate Virginia Department of Social Services Family Assistance Management Grant in the amount of $20,000, second reading. 7, an ordinance to amend and reordain Chapter 31 Utilities of the Code of the City of Charlottesville, 1990, as amended, to establish a connection fee for new gas services. Second reading. 8, a resolution to appropriate $2,076,696 in additional funding from the Virginia Office of Children's Services to support at-risk children and families. Second reading. Number 9, a resolution to return $1,848,424 to the general fund and appropriate an additional transfer of $423,546 to the Children's Services Act Fund, second reading. 10, a resolution appropriating funding from the Federal Transit Administration and Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation supporting multiple Charlottesville area transit capital projects, $16,846,224, second reading. 11, resolution considering a critical slope special exception for 2010 Meadowbrook Road. 12, resolution considering a critical slope special exception for the Botanical Gardens of the Piedmont. 13, resolution authorizing execution of an agreement to maintain stormwater management facilities. Is that SWM? Sorry, I didn't catch that. For the Botanical Garden project. Resolution, number 14, resolution to approve addendum to a lease with the Botanical Garden of the Piedmont. 15, resolution to appropriate $52,981.60 from the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development Virginia Homeless Solutions Program. And this one is requesting waiver of the second reading with a 4/5 vote.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda with the authorization for one reading for number 15?
So moved. No second. I guess
Is there a
I
motion?
move, yes.
Do we have a second?
Do we need to pull that item out specifically, or?
No.
So long as it's included in the motion, you should be fine.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second. Okay.
Thank you.
Initiate the, do you have comments?
Nope, just everyone vote, please. Thank you.
Hold on.
All right, and the motion passes 4-0 to adopt the consent agenda. And now we will move on to the city manager's report. Mr. Sanders, is there a report from the city manager's office?
Yes. First up is James Walker with the Office of Police Civilian Oversight, and then I'll have a few comments afterwards.
Thank you. Mr. Walker?
Good evening, Vice Mayor Oshrin, members of council, and Mr. City Manager. I am James Walker. I am the acting director of the Police Civilian Oversight Board on the staff side, and we have our 8-member board that are representatives of the community. So we work together. I was just with the chair and vice chair this morning doing some planning, kind of reestablishing our second half of 2026. But tonight what I'm bringing to you is an overview of the 2025 annual report for the board and the office. It looks correct up here. I saw on the city council agenda it was like kind of pink. I don't know why, but we'll hopefully have a good version posted on the PCOB website for sure. Yeah, but it looks good here. So I apologize if the darkness around my eyes. Last time I was here with you, we were talking about changes to the PCOB ordinance, and we had a little girl 3 days later. So we are less than a month into our second child, and so
Congratulations.
figuring that out. Thank you. So just to begin, this covers calendar year 2025. So I know the city operates on the fiscal year, but for the board's purposes, just sticking with the calendar works for them. So the first section of the report just kind of gives the overview about the office, about the board itself, how it relates to each other. There are photos of all the different members that have been on the board throughout 2025. There's actually, I think you'll see 10 individuals on that page because there's been quite a bit of transition. There is also a recognition page of former director Inez Gonzalez, who departed back in August of 2025 and went out to the Bay Area Rapid Transit system in California as their independent police auditor for their transit system. And so there was just a recognition of her in there, as well as our former chair, Al Pola, who had been handed the chair for the first part of 2025, passed off from Bill Mendez before that. So Bill kind of completed his term back in 2024, 2025, that turnover in January, and then Mr. Pola took over for the first couple months before he had left the board. So since that time, Dr. Frazier has become the current chair of the board. That was in late 2025, Dr. Jeffrey Frazier, and he remains the chair today. We had welcomed quite a few new members to the board in early 2025, but then several new members replaced some of those slots in late 2025. And so today, we still have all 8 members, 4 of which are fairly new, 2 of which are kind of new, and 2 of which have been around quite a while. So it's a good representation of kind of different perspectives. So as we spoke about last time, the ordinance recommended changes currently being reviewed by City Attorney's Office. That might change some of the aspects of the powers and duties of the board, but the focus in the past as well as in the future is to provide the greatest level of oversight of the police that this city can provide. It is meant to be objective and civilian-led. That was the intent. And the goal of this board and this office is to provide more of that, not less, with these changes. And so we established some of the foundations of that back in September of 2025. City Council graciously met with the board, and we kind of did a first run pass of the ordinance and cleaned up some of the smaller ticket items in there, as well as moved some ordering around, preparing for this second set that came to you more recently. So a lot of the duties center around the concept of reviewing police department policies, practices, procedures, as well as what is happening in terms of complaints being filed with the Office of Internal Affairs. A lot of that is still remaining, and the goal is to carry that work forward more in depth going forward. So, the second section just talks a little bit about the community and the state of oversight. So the community is constantly changing, and we've heard some of that tonight with perspectives from 30 years ago about the community and versus today. And so the needs of the community are always changing. It is the intent and focus of this board. It was in 2025 as well as it is now to get out in the community more. Myself and some of our members were down at the river with the police department, walking around talking to individuals last week, and our goal is to be out more, not only with the police department, talking side by side with them, just in some ways following up after they've had a conversation, for us to have a conversation about, hey, what has been your experience with police? How do you feel about them being in this area and talking to you? But also on our own at events and in public areas that we've been connecting. And so one of the things that I wanted to highlight is that the landscape of oversight has been changing drastically across the country. One interesting aspect that I came to learn is that there are actually more oversight entities across the country than there were last time I reported to you in the 2024 annual report. But one of the emphasis pieces that NACOL, National Association of Oversight Entities, one of the things they emphasized was that a lot of the oversight entities that are being created have less powers and less duties than in the past. And so there is a continual struggle, a churn in what oversight entities are meant to do, what their powers and duties are, what their access is. And that is happening nationwide. And also there's been some changes at the federal level that have affected localities. So you're seeing that change, that churn. We are not the only one that does that. And 2025 certainly was a year of transition, the goal being sustainability going forward. Public confidence in policing has declined, and this was according to Gallup and Pew Research. So there's wider racial gaps, there is lower confidence in policing, and those changes affect this community as well as many others. So those are just some of the overviews. Police Department oversight, this is kind of the core bread and butter of the PCOB. One of the things I like to emphasize is that the PCOB has more access to police records and police meetings, police actions than any other oversight entity in Virginia. That is a definitive statement. I have direct access to body-worn camera footage. I had direct access at the time to the flock camera system to be able to audit these systems, to sample data in them, to understand how they're being used by the department, and to audit the use of them, to check them against policies. And so these are things that can be brought through this office to the board to review and understand. So there was at least 16 internal affairs interviews that were monitored as part of complaints across 8 cases. Now there were about 32 cases, but typically with one person in the office, I try to pick ones that are going to speak to a variety of topics or more critical topics. Also, participation in multiple use of force panels. So this is a panel where every time the department uses force, whether that's physical hands-on or the deployment of a weapon, doesn't necessarily need to be used, but taken out of the holster, pointed at someone, that taser, that kind of thing. All of those go through a review process, and the PCOB, as part of that review process, provides input from a civilian perspective. Also, the license plate readers, those are no longer currently in use, but for much of 2025 they were, and we were auditing that system, looking at the data and the usage of that system, providing feedback both to the police department and attending those community meetings to answer questions from our end of the perspective that the police department was holding. And so we learned a lot about that, but also understood a lot of those community concerns and heard a lot of that as well. And so one of the big changes that had occurred midway through that pilot was the restriction of access to other police departments in the state of Virginia. So by the second half of that pilot, the only people who could access that system were CPD officers, and I guess myself, because the only person who was not a CPD officer who could get in was myself. But that was for the auditing and data purposes. So also there was a couple policies that the board looked at throughout the year, the limited English proficiency and how resources are provided to those who do not speak English as their first language or their primary language, the use of force policy, and the early intervention system, which the department is currently starting to deploy and build out, which is identifying officers that may be at risk for a variety of factors. It could be not necessarily negative or issues, but like if there's been a couple of severe cases related to having to use force, all those could have been, within compliance within policy, but maybe that officer needs some additional attention and a check-in. And so that early intervention system, that's something we used to use in education, trying to front-run any issues that may arise before they do. And so the board has been part of shaping that policy and having those conversations. This was just a quick fact sheet just about the numbers. The PCOB's office budget is about $300,000. Now, you'll see the next number over. A lot of that isn't being used because currently the office is slated for 2 individuals, but we currently just have myself in the office as the acting director, and so there's a big portion of that budget that is a salary that's not being used. But also, one of the things I like to emphasize about this is that we represent, the budgeted amount is a little bit over 1% of the police department's budget. The actual probably used amount year to year is probably less than 1% of the police department's budget. I like to give the figure that it represents about 2 officers per year is what the PCOB costs. And so as a ratio of value, that is one of the things I like to point out. And our goal is to produce as much for that value as we can. And so there were 32 internal affairs cases in 2025. 12 of those actually came through the PCOB. So 12 cases were either a call or through our online portal, someone coming to the door, and then referred to internal affairs and monitored. And that's a process where I'm having a conversation with that complainant, guiding them through the process of internal affairs, making sure they're being contacted and followed up with. And of those 32 cases, there were 65 allegations across a variety of officers. So most cases are a single officer, some are 4 officers, and so it kind of skews, but I have that more detailed data published on our website. And the median time to close a case is about 34 days. And this is an important figure because it speaks to some of the recommended changes in the ordinance where the chief of police has 45 days from the moment the complaint is received to the moment that discipline is given out. Yes, applause.
I'm so sorry to interrupt your flow. So you had 32 cases with 65 allegations,
Correct.
meaning some of those incidents were multiple officers.
Or it could be one officer with multiple allegations.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so my question was going to be, are there any officers that were involved in multiple of the cases?
Yes, that does happen, and that kind of data I didn't put as expansively into the report this year because one of the goals is to move some of that online where it lives all the time, that people can access all the time and is updated regularly, so kind of like a data dashboard. And so yes, I mean that is true. There's officers that you'll see routinely through there, but that could also mean that sometimes they're an unfounded result as a result, but then other cases are sustained. So yes, that could represent the same officer multiple times. Yep. 32 cases is just like 32 complaints. Could include multiple officers, could include multiple allegations.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, any other questions up to that point?
No, thank you.
I know I go fast.
That's all right.
Want to use your time wisely.
I appreciate it. We appreciate it.
So if you're thinking about like the 34-day time to close a case, that means there are 11 days until, in average, the chief has to make a disciplinary decision. So thinking back to some of those ordinance recommendations, on average, the board would have 11 days to collectively get together. Actually, we wouldn't be able to do it collectively. They would have to do it just like 2-2-1s occur, 2 at a time or 1 at a time, to review the case, and then meet in a public forum, so actually schedule a date, publicly announce it, and then provide that a vote of findings or determinations based on that case. So the feasibility of being able to do that is part of why that recommended change was, let's move that process to, hey, the chief's already given out discipline, let's review the sufficiency of that discipline, the discipline policy after the fact, rather than trying to fit in that 11 days, a case review of 8 board members with all very different schedules, part of which includes a public meeting that has to have public notice, and there's a challenge there, and that kind of represents it. Policy, ordinance, and governance reform. So this is, I hit on this a couple times already. The council approved those changes of the ordinance that we talked about in September. Actually in November is when it went into effect. And so since that time, we continued working on the ordinance and making additional proposals, the ones that were presented more recently to you. And part of that original process was formally establishing the office as a separate entity than the board. So a lot of the original issues with the ordinance was it didn't clarify what does the office do, what does the board do, how do we relate to one another, what is each responsible for. Ever since my time here, and especially since acting director, I view my role as supporting the board in fulfilling its functions. I support the board through providing the internal access and understanding of the department, of the systems, of being able to prepare research, data, and information for them, and to serve their needs in having those coordination of public meetings as well as the work that we do week to week. Like I said, the chair and the vice chair meet with me every week. We were meeting in the office this morning. So we're planning, we're working, we're scheduling additional follow-up events, trying to include all the board members into our work. And so one of the other big things is that the original ordinance had the independent counsel power vested with the board. That was just a functional thing that made more sense to fall with the office as a city employee. And I'm happy to let you know today that we do have independent counsel, and they are able to provide a second lens on things like the ordinance revisions, as well as the way that we go about handling FOIA, public meetings, and these kind of considerations, which are challenging. And then finally, the goal is to work towards that concept of a monitor, audit, and review framework of oversight. So again, moving more from the independent investigation to monitor, be aware of what's going on with the department and the community, audit, making sure we're looking at the data, the systems, the practices, the policies, and the review framework, providing a civilian-led accountability, transparency, and commentary on what the police activity is. And so that's kind of where we're moving. Part 4 is community engagement and outreach. 2025 was a very exciting year. It started off with one of the most unique opportunities that I've ever had, which was that we hosted a session, as well as CPD, but PCOB did separately, with the presidential precinct. They brought in, we had probably about 8 gentlemen from much of the Middle Eastern countries. It was Jordan, Morocco, United Arab Emirates, I believe, I'm trying to remember some of the others, but what they were all various leaders in policing accountability, so like their version of internal affairs in their countries. And so many of them are very, very different structures, but we had a very interesting and open dialogue with them through translators about some of the ways that policing looks here and accountability looks here versus in their countries. They asked many questions. We had many questions of them as well. And it was just a very interesting conversation, and we hope we can do that again, because that was very cool. And they all had gifts for all of us, so that was interesting as well. And then also, we had the town hall this last year as well in 2025. It was the end of April. And at that town hall, Inez Gonzalez had led that effort and got over 50 community members to attend. I believe some of you were there as well. And it was a good time to hear the community. It was raw, it was truthful, it was honest, but it gave a great opportunity for some of those members of the community who were part of this originally to come give their voice and lend their thoughts to the board as a whole. And we have that captured through, we partnered with UVA and kind of captured that in a summary report, and so that's something we have and have published as well. And then also we've had various interactions with NACOL. I mentioned them before. I'm on one of their committees, and Inez was on one as well. She probably still is through her new role. But Mediation Center, we've also done some training and work with the Mediation Center of Charlottesville. And NAACP, I just mentioned, is one of our members is the vice president, Mr. Dillard. And so he invites us regularly to their meetings to go over and answer questions, speak to them. And he just kind of helps provide that link between the NAACP and the board. And then lastly, we definitely strengthened the office's response to media. Any media entities that reach out, I always try to provide a very clear and open response to them about what's going on, what we're working on, answers to questions. We've had many media come to our meetings over the past, 2025 and more recently as well. And so we welcome that, and I've got to know some of them and have dialogue with them about where the board is going. So that's all been very good. Professional development and peer engagement, this is part 5. So there's a lot of professional development that I do that's more targeted at understanding policing, internal investigations, those types of things, but the board itself has focused more on oversight in general. What are the various models of oversight, and how do you deploy oversight in a locality? One of the things that we're working towards now, going off of 2025, is doing ride-alongs, so really trying to have a full perspective of the community side as well as the police side, because the goal is objectivity and making decisions about the police actions and how they are served in the community. So there's another, the NACOL has a lot of different groups as well as their investigators forum, so that was a routine thing that we would join. And there is a collective of oversight entities in Virginia. There's a couple cities that have an oversight entity. We meet on a regular basis, discuss different issues and challenges among them. So I always look forward to those as well. And then finally, part 6, office operations and city collaboration. As you know, there's been a lot of transition in 2025. The goal through this year is Sustainability and consistency, that is my effort, that is my intention. And I come from a background in more of like the operations area with IT and education. So, you know, that's how I'm always minded. And some of our newest board members are very similarly minded. So the goal through 2026 is to build on 2025 and not call it a year of transition, but a year of growth and sustainability. We've stabilized a lot of the core systems, the way that we're doing things, the way that we are publishing things. And we've also introduced, at the end of 2025, we were discussing, hey, let's actually create a work plan for 2026. The board approved that and are now carrying that forward. And we've been meeting about kind of doing a mid-year check-in on that as well. So a lot of the work and the struggle and the challenge of 2025 definitely built some of the groundwork for 2026 as we move forward. So it has been a very exciting and interesting year. There has been a lot of change, but there's also been a lot of growth. And so I'm happy to report that to you. And as we work towards going forward in 2026, we want to bring a lot more back to the council of the success and the work of the PCOB, how it's connecting to the community, and how it's shaping the police department in ways that it needs to change, and reinforcing the ways that it's already being successful. So thank you, and I appreciate your time. Any questions?
Great, thank you. Any questions?
No.
Sorry, Deb.
One's a pet, two's a zoo. Best of luck.
Yes, our 2-year-old is more work than the baby, so thank you.
No questions.
Any questions?
Just obviously a huge focus this year will be, as you highlighted, the move potentially to the monitor, audit, and review framework. Beyond that, what are some of the other things you're looking to accomplish this year? Or
Sure.
are you looking to replicate the town hall? And just one example.
I would say that one of the big things is case review. So one of the things that we've been working on this spring is developing a case scoring manual and case scoring process. It actually has a process that describes how a case is reviewed by the board and then how it is scored according to a standardized process. So the goal of that is moving forward. We've done a mock case. It was a real case that came through the PCOB, but going forward is to be able to do routine cases or topical sets of cases, let's say on courtesy as an example, and look at maybe 3 cases related to that. And then be able to score them, each board member independently, and provide a final kind of determination, outcome, recommendation from that scoring. So it's meant to be a very public, transparent process. So that's kind of the meat and potatoes of oversight. Now, on the outreach side, our goal has been to connect more directly with small groups, organizations, individuals. And so what we have is a communications and outreach plan. We have a directory, I think it has about 150 entries on it, of various groups, entities, individuals. Many of our board members have already started making those connections. We're trying to build relationships, not just quick touch points. And so through those relationships, we're asking very simple questions like, what has been your experience with policing? And we're starting to try to build a metric around trust. What is your feelings of trust in the police? Do you feel like they're helping or harming? In what ways do you feel like they're helping or harming? What would you like to see different? And so through that, we're able to then create and provide resources and recommendations to the police department that are actionable and effective and actually based on community data. So I would say there's the background work of the actual oversight of cases and systems, but then there's also truly the community outreach that's focused on listening to the community and bringing that data back to inform our work. Sorry. That would be the focus, and I hope I can bring some products to you. Actually, I will bring some products to you later in 2026 that demonstrate that.
Thank you.
Yep.
My question is, what happens after the investigation? It goes back to the police. They have those 11 days to make a determination. Without revealing any personnel concerns, can you tell us some of the results of the investigations in however vaguely you need to be?
Yeah, so one of the things that, and I haven't done it, my goal is to get some of that up pretty soon here, but in 2024, I had a conversation with the chief, and he had released to us the disciplinary outcomes, not of each specific case, but by month. So saying like, okay, these were the disciplines given out in January, February, March, August. what we're able to do is then actually pair those up with some of the allegations and just see trends of what types of allegations are coming in, which ones are sustained based on the investigation, and then what kinds of discipline are being paired with those allegations. So that's enough of a connection to say, hey, this type of discipline is not consistent or is not substantial enough, or it is maybe, to match this allegation and the severity of this type of complaint. And so being able to kind of track that process from start to finish, it is a lot of confidential information behind the scenes, but the board has access to that through various controlled settings, and then being able to transition that into a public item that can come out, a recommendation, that is a challenge. Like, that process from behind the scenes to the public eye is hard, and it requires a lot of consideration of FOIA and public meeting rules, many of the things that you deal with as well. And so that is something that requires that foundational work to be done with the legal departments, with the policy, with the, all the things that govern how we go about doing these. And we're trying to make sure that we're doing it correctly. But 2024 had that data, and 2025's data is going to be posted on our website. So the goal is to get that so it's more live and like in the moment, real time. When cases are closed, was there a discipline? It might be delayed by a little bit to keep the confidentiality, but that's something the chief has given to us, and we publish it to the extent that we can because it's his record. So that's what we attempt to do, that
Okay.
transparency piece.
I appreciate that. Thanks. Anyone else?
Thank you, James.
I just want to comment that as one who had tried for many years to get an ordinance crafted that would really make a difference, it sounds like the ordinance we have now finally arrived at is likely, to be implemented successfully, and to be implemented in such a way that we can fulfill the purposes for which we created the PCOB in the first place.
And I can say that for myself as well as the board, it is 100% our mission to see that the statement you just made be successfully carried out, and to prove that to the council, to city manager, and to the community, as well as to the police department, in the sense of it ultimately helps them as well.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you, James. Other James has an item as well.
Good evening, Vice Mayor Oshrin, members of council. Just a brief, more in the way of an announcement, recognizing that back in 2021, the General Assembly passed a law banning food establishments from using styrofoam, and that law goes into effect for all food establishments effective July 1. City is going to be putting up a website here shortly that explains how that will work and provide resources in terms of information and process for restaurants within the community. So again, just for awareness.
Okay, great, thank you.
And then I have a series of other things that I wanted to share as well. Because we don't have a council meeting, actually will be after, I don't remember. Another meeting, just wanted to remind the public, and because this plays on a loop and that the public gets to watch it as well. July 3rd, Downtown Mall 50th anniversary party. 10 a.m. there'll be walking tours. They'll be going on all day. 4 p.m. there's a birthday party at Central Place. It's free to the public. Ice cream, face painting, and live music from the Seaville Band. At 5:30, Fridays After 5 will feature Baba Seth at the Ting Pavilion. At 8:30, there's a lantern parade. Greer has promised me a very good time walking up and down the mall with folks in lanterns in the dark, with the LB Brass Band playing. And at 9 o'clock, we have a 50th light show at the Code Building. So that's open to the public, come one, come all, it's for everyone. Also, on the 4th of July, the Seaville Spectacular Fireworks Show on Carter Mountain will happen 9 p.m.-ish, Chris? Yeah. My message, recorded a message with Dan Schutte at CBS 19 and basically said, find your spot. So find your spot to take in the fireworks. Compliments of City, County, University, CBS 19, and a host of other sponsors. And then this is the America's 250th celebration, so there are all kinds of activities going on at Monticello and other places all over the region. Will continue, so this message is stay in town. There are plenty of things to do. Find other things to do instead of traveling, right? All right. Now, last thing is homelessness update. As I promised, I'll continue to give an update on this hot button issue that we have in our community. I just wanted to share some things that have been happening, just so that folks are appreciative of the notion that we are not sitting idle on this issue. Assistant City Manager Roman and DHS Director Misty Graves participated in a meeting last week with Pacham Partners to continue to explore opening an emergency overnight shelter as soon as possible. We hope that we can get that done. We're not confident that we're going to be able to. The city has arranged for the placement of Porta-John hand washing station and a dumpster at 0 East High. We expect the placement of that this week. We have continued to try to work with business owners in the area, but they have not been open to the idea of supporting an effort to put additional items in that general area, so that poses a continued issue. We remain in contact with the Blue Ridge Health District regarding conditions and health concerns at both Ravenna and Campman areas, and we'll continue to prioritize what is safe and to push for changes that lead to safety for everyone involved, for those who are there as well as those who pass through the area. Tomorrow, I'm meeting with Support Works. These are the folks behind Vista 29 and the crossings, and the goal is to discuss their ability to participate in the service provision in a bigger way than they currently are. They've expressed an interest and an openness to that, so we hope to engage. Assistant City Manager Roman is going to be attending a community conversation with the Continuum. That's the BRAC organized effort later on this week. I have a meeting with Nichelle Carver. She's formerly with the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness. She currently serves on the BRAC Board of Directors and is local, and has expressed an interest in helping us understand some of the facets of addressing such a complicated issue. So I'll be meeting with her later this week. And I just want to remind everyone that we continue to focus on a comprehensive approach to address this longstanding issue in our community. We are working to set a new standard and manage expectations, as I mentioned to Council in October of 2023. This is not a fleeting issue for me. It's something that we continue to focus on, and we're looking for a way for us to make a difference for the long haul. So that is my report.
Could I follow up on that?
Please.
Mr. Sanders, as I recall, I think it was May 13th when we had the meeting with the three agencies, and there was discussion of hopefully getting a plan within 30 days.
They asked for 6 months, and I gave them 3 months, so end of August for the plan that we discussed.
Okay.
Operating plan for Holiday Drive.
Right, okay. Maybe I was wishfully thinking that we would get
I'm still hoping it'll be
result than
faster
that.
than the end of August, but end of August is what we ultimately agreed to.
Thank you.
I'll share that plan is more of what does Holiday Drive actually feel like when somebody walks in the door. That's the plan that they're trying to arrive at. In addition to that, we've engaged additional experts in the field of looking at spaces, architects and others, to try to help us see are there ways to adjust what we anticipate the cost to be, to see if we can get that down. So that is happening right now as well.
And I would also say that in the last couple of weeks, I've talked to a number of people who are on the boards of those various agencies, and a number of them have said to me in some fashion or another, I don't know whether we're all going to be able to get on the same page. Can't you guys at the city just say, this is the way it's going to be, and let's see if we can see who wants to come rally around that flag?
That's what we're doing.
Okay.
Sadly, that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
But that's what we're doing.
And, obviously recently there was a death in the encampment, and, we don't know everything that happened there. We do know from the reporting that, it was initially reported after a smell was indicated, a potential sign that the individual had been passed away for some time there. Obviously, the conditions are conducive to that kind of tragedy happening. And people remain in a floodway as we approach tropical storm season, flash flood season. Are there any timelines or approach for the city assessing what are conditions that are so dangerous in terms of fire risk or health and human safety that death is a real imminent risk given those conditions?
Yep. So we're working through those, looking at each issue one by one, checking what are the legal parameters for enforcement, what is available to us in the way to enforce, as well as what we are limited in being able to enforce. There's no set timeline at this moment that I'm prepared to announce, but I have made it clear that we are not going to accept the individuals who are currently closest to the river remaining in that posture. So we're working through that process. The goal was that we would hope to get some support out of one of the adjacent business owners to allow us to set equipment and things up in that space, but we have yet to find anyone willing to do that. That hampers our ability because we can't roll those things in ourselves. We can't get under
And
the
I
bridge.
do want to clarify, there's several businesses along that route.
Correct.
One of them has offered to help, the others
Yes,
have
the
not.
Ravenna River Company has been helpful and has been very open to supporting, but they're on the wrong side of the bridge is the issue. It's not their fault that they're on the wrong side. We're trying to find a way to access on the other side of the bridge where the actual tents are physically located next to the bridge. And that is one of our limiting factors. One approach that we will ultimately end up having to take is that we are going to have to disturb the encampment. Folks have asked us not to do that. I don't think that that's tolerable.
Well, and I know everyone is in agreement on this point, but would just, highlight the gravity of, someone having just died there. And, we don't know what happened, but, I think the conditions there are not compassion.
I wish everyone were agreeable.
And, I pray and hope there won't be further deaths.
I agree.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate everyone who's working towards that. We will now move on to our action items, beginning with do I read this or do you read this? Okay. Ordinance to amend and reordain City Code Chapter 31 Utilities to establish new utility rates and service fees for city gas, water, and sanitary sewer. This is the second reading. Hi.
Good evening, Madam Vice Mayor, members of council. I'm Chris Cullinan, the city's Director of Finance. And as you just summarized, this agenda item is the second reading of an ordinance to amend and reordain the city code to update new utility fees and service rates for the city's water, wastewater, natural gas, and stormwater utilities for FY '27. At your last meeting, you received a presentation from city staff on this item and held the required public hearing. During the discussion of this item, it was clear that the consensus of council was not to have the utilities department renew the one-year contract with BP for carbon offsets. We have not signed that document. Staff recommends that the $300,000 that was going to be used to fund the BP contract instead be used to explore responsible, locally based alternatives to mitigate the gas utilities' carbon emissions. This recommendation will not require a change to the proposed gas rates. Have any other questions you might have?
We'll start down here.
Just because I got a specific media inquiry about this, could you walk through the reasons, because last council meeting, when there was a consensus not to move forward with the offsets to BP, there's indication maybe we would need some additional ordinance or vote. Could you walk through why that is not needed tonight? I don't know if that makes sense, but.
On the contract?
Correct.
John, can you speak to the ability to continue to collect the money that would have been used for carbon offset that we're not going to use for BP specifically?
We're still using the money toward a very much the same goal. We're meeting the goal in a different way than through buying the offsets, but that's completely permissible.
So the initial concern was that we might be collecting funds with no intended purpose. So that's the clarifying item, is that it's just a redirected purpose.
That's helpful and clear. There's just a specific media inquiry about it I got earlier
And ultimately
today.
the same purpose, just a different way of getting at it.
Exactly.
Correct.
I think the only other question is at this time, and it's fine if the answer is there's not, is there like a timeline for when it would be determined the alternative uses of that $300,000? I think it's totally understand that this is a fluid new situation.
Yeah, and the direction that's being given to the Office of Sustainability is to coordinate with C3 specifically as one of the external organizations, but maybe others, to develop a list, because that ultimately is what we had agreed that we would make sure would happen if you all had renewed BP for another year, that same action was going to be requested of them. We have not set a date and time yet for when that would be delivered because they've been working on the climate action report. So we'll be able to shift into that next.
I think that is completely understandable and reasonable. But that's it for me.
Anyone down here?
Can you just, again, for the second reading time, tell folks how, if they need support with their utility bill, how they go about doing that?
Please call the utility billing office at 970-3211 or reach out to them via email. And the sooner, my advice to them is please reach out sooner rather than later. I think a lot of folks hope it'll go away, it'll get better, but folks continue to consume utilities on a daily basis and they just dig themselves further into that deficit situation. And so the sooner folks reach out, the sooner that our folks can work with them to come up with alternative payment arrangements, any assistance they might be due, and if there are any leaks involved, what their options are. So my advice is sooner rather than later.
And the rebate programs for installation and...
Those are open year-round at any time.
Okay, great. If there are no other questions, is there a motion?
Hold on.
I would move approval of the ordinance to amend and reordain City Code Chapter 31 to establish new utility rates and service fees for city gas, water, and sanitary sewer.
Second.
All right, if there's no further discussion, we can go ahead and vote.
Are you a yes?
I'm a yes. I don't know why I can't get back to it. Yeah.
Actually, a question not related to the vote.
Okay.
But does the $300,000, does that come back in front of us, or is that just inside the office of the state
We'll bring
attorney?
to you a list of the local actions. I would want your endorsement of how we would do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That motion passed 4-0.
Thank you very much, Ms. Thomas. Next is item number 17, a resolution approving amended grant agreement for the Charlottesville Supplemental Rental Assistance Program, SISRAP. Madeline Messler will be presenting. Thank you.
Good evening, councilors. I'm Madeline Metzler, Housing Senior Planner with Neighborhood Development Services, and I'm presenting, as Councilor Oshrin mentioned, a resolution to extend the 8th amended grant agreement for the Charlottesville Supplemental Rental Assistance Program, or SISRAP, through September 30th, 2026. SISRAP provides assistance to extremely low and low-income households earning below 60% of area median income and supports approximately 68 households annually. Over the past 8 months, the city has conducted a comprehensive evaluation of the program as part of our commitment to transparency and effective administration. And this extension is needed because the evaluation produced substantial findings that require careful policy and operational development before they can be incorporated into the next annual grant agreement. The evaluation examined participant and referral partner experiences, program design and administrative processes, and identified recommended updates in areas such as eligibility and prioritization policies, expectations around program tenure and transition planning, improvements to administrative procedures and data systems as well. The extension provides city staff, CRHA, and stakeholders the time necessary to translate these findings into well-developed recommendations. To summarize progress, the evaluation has completed its the first 5 of 8 phases, including establishing goals and evaluation questions, developing and conducting interviews with staff, data collection, analyzing service coverage, equity impacts, and operational performance, and reviewing preliminary findings with CRHA, referral partners, and stakeholders, and internal departments. Together, these steps provide a clear picture of the program's strengths and opportunities for improvement. Work now underway focuses on developing actionable recommendations. The remaining phases include refining policy and operational options with CRHA, stakeholders, and city leadership, preparing finalizing the full evaluation report and council briefing materials, and presenting a revised grant agreement with all of you, which we plan to do in September. During this extension period, city staff will continue engagement with referral partners and program participants through meetings, surveys, and feedback sessions, refine and prioritize recommended updates, develop revised policies related to program eligibility, program tenure, transition planning, and administrative procedures, and assess improvements to data systems and communication processes to strengthen oversight and customer service. There's no additional financial impact associated with this action. SISRAP is supported through annual capital improvement program allocations, and current funds are sufficient to maintain rental assistance through the extension period. That's in part because we delayed the start of the agreement last year, so it has not been a full year since the current agreement was in place. City staff recommends that council adopt the attached resolution extending the time for performance under the 8th Amendment to the FY26 SISRAP grant agreement through September 30th, 2026. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have at this time. Thank you so much.
Any questions from over here?
So will we get the evaluation report in September as well, or when do we get?
A final report will be available in September, although drafts of that should make their way, if not to all of you, to some of you through some of the committees that do exist before then.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Nothing like? Michael?
Would it be in September that City Council would make any decisions about changing the SISRAP program?
The idea would be that there would be some changes that would be made, though the goal would be to have vetted some of those so they would hopefully not be a big surprise when they would come to you at that point.
Makes sense. I think what's in front of us tonight makes sense, and definitely look forward to September in the fall, because I think there's a number of changes that could be made to CSRAP that ultimately would mean more working class and poor families would be able to have housing. So I think there's definitely opportunities for improvement I'm interested to see in September.
Yeah, and I mean, I think some of the important feedback from the evaluation was that it is a really important benefit that people really, really value in this community. Of course, it's always challenging to determine how could we make it go further, especially if we're trying to work with limited resources.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. If there's no more questions, is there a motion?
I make a motion to adopt the attached resolution extending the time for performance under the 8th Amendment to the grant agreement for the fiscal year 26 SISRAP through September 30th, and that CRHA is authorized to use eligible and applicable carry forward fiscal year 26 SISRAP undrawn funds in an amount not to exceed $545,731.20.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, if there's no further discussion, we can vote. And the motion passes 4-0. And then we have them presenting again for the resolution allocating $575,000 in housing operations and support FY27 grant funding. This is the first of 2 readings, so we'll hear the presentation. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And again, I'm here to present the Charlottesville Affordable Housing Fund Committee, the CAF Committee's recommendation for the FY27 grant awards for the Housing Operations and Program Support, or HOPS, grant program, and to request your approval of the proposed allocations. These were also presented back in one of the April budget meetings, but this would be the formal adoption, so we can go ahead and get all of those applicants their exciting award letters and grant agreements. The HOPS grant program is a key part of the city's overall affordable housing strategy. It provides operational support to nonprofit partners who deliver essential housing-related services. This ranges from homelessness response and eviction prevention to transitional housing and long-term stabilization. Beginning in FY24, these housing-specific requests were moved out of the Vibrant Community Funds and into this dedicated process, which is funded through the city's capital improvement program allocations into the Charlottesville Affordable Housing Fund. A notice of funding availability was issued in August 2025 that announced $575,000 was available in HOPS funding for FY27. 14 completed applications were received, and requests totaled just under $1.4 million. With requests far exceeding available funds, the committee focused on programs that showed the strongest alignment with city priorities, demonstrated organizational capacity, and delivered meaningful impact for underserved residents. The goal was to support a broad range of critical services while making thoughtful and sometimes difficult decisions about how to distribute limited resources. To evaluate applications, the committee used a comprehensive scoring rubric. This looked at the strength of the proposed program, the use of local data to demonstrate need, the applicant's understanding of the population that they serve, the use of best practices, and how outcomes would be tracked and measured. Organizational capacity and financial stability were also key considerations, including budget visibility, feasibility, and the ability to leverage outside funds. The scoring process also reviewed how programs engage underserved communities, the structure and representation of staff leadership, and how participants are involved in shaping and evaluating services. Collaboration with other providers and how well programs fit within the broader network of housing and homelessness services were also important factors. Together, these criteria helped ensure that the recommended programs are high quality, well aligned with the city goals, and positioned to meet the needs of the community. Final application scores ranged from 70 to 101 points. Based on those scores, the committee grouped applications into 4 tiers and applied consistent award percentages within each tier. Overall, the recommended FY27 HOPS awards support 13 programs across a wide range of housing-related services, and funding is allocated as follows. Approximately $224,000 supports day shelter operations, coordinated entry, and housing access services at the Haven. About $123,000 supports homeownership readiness, financial coaching, and resident services through Habitat for Humanity and Piedmont Housing Alliance. Roughly $74,000 supports permanent supportive housing and long-term stabilization through Support Works and Community Services Housing. About $54,000 supports emergency shelter and case management through PACHM. Just under $43,000 supports pre-construction services that help low-income homeowners prepare for future home repair projects through AHIP. Approximately $35,000 supports transitional housing programs serving families, refugees, and women in recovery through MACA, the International Rescue Committee, and Georgia's Friends. And about $22,000 supports eviction prevention and legal advocacy through the Legal Aid Justice Center. These funding categories reflect a broad range of services needed to support residents, from homelessness response to stabilization and prevention to pathways into long-term affordable housing. The committee's process ensures that each funded program plays a distinct role and contributes to a coordinated, effective system of services. All recommended expenditures fall within the FY27 CIP allocations for CAF, and no additional financial impact is associated with this action. These recommendations support essential nonprofit partners whose work advances the city's affordable housing goals and strengthens housing stability for residents with the greatest needs. City staff recommends that City Council adopt the attached resolution approving the FY27 HOPS grant program funding recommendations and authorize allocation of CAF funds to the 13 programs as outlined. And once again, thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions, Michael?
No questions really. I guess just it's not the committee's fault at all, but looking at it, I wonder, given where conversations have been going with homelessness in the community and the kind of responses we're looking at in terms of low barrier shelters, is this reflecting where the city is at in terms of where we want to go? I'm not sure it does. Maybe there would be a little bit more emphasis on case management or, PACHM running those kind of services to kind of better prepare us for where we want to go with Holiday Drive, either long-term or, at a more immediate interim level, utilizing it in some way. That was the only thought I had looking through it.
Anything else?
Anything else? All right, this side?
Well, the concern that I have had, and I had sent Ms. Metzler an email about, tipping her off about my concern that I was going to raise this issue. But it's something I've mentioned before. And I wonder if you could comment on whether it's a concern that we ought to be having about this particular allocation for the HOPS money, is that we're putting money into these programs based on what they have asked us for, what they think we want. And I don't know whether we have said to them with any greater specificity what we want, or whether, I guess my question would be whether, having received these different applications, was there ever a point where anybody sat there and said, okay, we've got 2 or 3 people all vying for money for the same basic function, can't we see how they work together to make sure that we're not leaving people out, that we're dealing with all of that we're making money available or assistance available to all of the people who may have a need in this area, and not merely to 1 or 2 1 or 2 constituencies. I'm thinking in particular, there are a number of different agencies, not just through HOPS, but through other funding sources as well, that deal with reentry from prison or prison or jail. And we have one particular request here for that kind of service, for women in particular. We have a couple of different requests. If you look at funding sources ranging from the jail through some of the nonprofits like Uhuru Foundation and things like that, a number of folks who work in that space, or at least are close to that space. And I wonder whether there is anybody in the regular course of things, in the way that we handle all of this, if there's anybody who sits there and says, here's a hole. We've got somebody working here and here, but nobody working here. And I just wonder whether there is something we ought to be doing, or a way we ought to be organizing the way in which we solicit requests or applications for the funds. If there's some way that we can be spending some energy and some thought on how we make sure we're covering all of the folks who ought to be getting those services.
Sure. Yeah, I think that touches on a bit of what Councilor Payne said too, as far as, would we want to be more prescriptive in the future about these are the specific services we really know there's a need for, and that is certainly direction I think the committee would be happy to take from you all if you wanted to give it. And your point about
in your sequence of how you do your work, would that be useful?
I think that would, it would be coming up shortly with the NOFA being released this summer. But the HOPS program itself, usually the application is open in October or November. So it would be, sometime between then we would want to be able to give some feedback to applicants with that direction. And also to your point about the duplication of efforts, that's certainly an observation that comes up when reviewing the applications, especially if you're looking at a 2-sentence summary of each of them. Often digging in deeper into the applications, it can become a little more clear, they're really serving this specific population, and it doesn't have a lot of overlap with this organization over here, but that's part of the due diligence that the committee does. It's also helpful that we have Taylor Harvey Ryan, who's our grants manager, on that committee, as well as Misty Graves. She's also on the committee, and they both have some oversight, some other ideas about what these organizations are doing in the community, besides my more narrow view, which is really about HOPS and CAF. And that helps bring some awareness as well. And sometimes we do go back and ask the applicants to specify. I think it wasn't as much this year. I want to say it was last funding cycle. It was in particular, it seemed there was a high number of applications that were doing something around eviction prevention. And that was a big question of, wait, the city is also putting a lot of money into that, so is there a duplication? And we found that there wasn't so much, but it did kind of raise a question of, is there maybe a bigger need that is being unmet, since we're seeing so many of the same organizations asking for funding for that specific need. So I don't know, I think that's part of the process when you're having the government funding a bunch of nonprofits rather than having one central service provider. I don't think that's the direction that we necessarily want to go in, but I think if we could help nonprofits collaborate together, there could be, a desire for that, but I would want to hear from those service providers before I speak for them.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
That's my thought.
Yeah, I just have one question, which
Sure,
was,
go ahead.
is this, the gap, the 1.39 and 575,000, is that an average gap of asked funding?
Yeah, it's pretty typical. I can look back over the years and see, exact figures, but it is always the amount requested is always more than double what we have available.
And that's every funding source.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
Great, so is there agreement to carry the item to the July 20th meeting for a second reading and vote?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll just offer, thank you, Madeline, but I'll offer perspective on the questions that have come up in regards to prioritizing, strategizing, directing to certain areas. The work session that we just had on investing in community, your strategic planning sessions or retreats are those moments. That's what we'll have to make sure that we call out. I'll be a little more conscious of calling out the opportunity for you to help direct where you want money to go by prioritizing is the moment that we're looking for. We need that clarity from you as a majority, because it's great to hear from one person about this priority and this person about that priority. But I jokingly share with you all, give me 3, because that's a majority of this body. So I need 3 people to land in the same place, suggesting that reentry is a hot topic for us. We want to focus some energy there. And then I can give Madeline the clarity that she needs to then inform the process to bring you that result. So just keep that in mind as we go forward in those different meetings when we're in a strategy moment, and I'll make sure to call them out more specifically, that those are the moments that I'm looking for the feedback that then becomes the direction that informs our process. And then hopefully we'll bring you the results you're looking for. When it comes to speaking to nonprofits about should they be doing this, should they be merging and all, we don't see that as staff perspective as their place. If you want us to speak on that, that would be more in a non-public setting, because we're not looking to be partial in that particular moment. I think you, as a body that is putting out funding, can state that you have a priority that collaboration be funded, so we can give points for that. Or if you're looking for direction that you want to give to us, that no more than 2 organizations doing the same thing should be funded in any specific round, you can give that kind of clarity for us. That would be very helpful if we had some language like that to then put in front of the committee that's reviewing the packets, and then can more or less filter using those parameters.
So we need to do some of our, before we ask that, do maybe some research on how does that actually affect nonprofits? Have people done that in the past? How has consolidation been either pushed for or big incentivized in some way?
It's usually driven either by the organizations concluding that on their own, that we can't cut it on our own, or funders drive that conversation.
Yeah.
That's really where it comes from.
So we would want to make sure we're doing something effective, not just vibes-based, sounds good.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to be fleeting in where you're going. You want to make sure that you're targeting certain things. I think to Councilor Payne's point of, are we hearing that list of where we're funding? He didn't really hear homelessness. I get that. That's a fair question with the issue that we face today. But if that is a priority that you want to then be able to tie to the results that you get in the next report, we have to hear that from you.
And I know we're not going to resolve it tonight, and I don't expect to discuss it tonight in depth, but would just throw out for the upcoming one, I'd be particularly interested with, investments in homelessness targeted towards one, no matter what, Holiday Drive. One of the biggest challenges will be funding case managers and staffing for it. So looking at investments in that direction. And then if we do anything in the interim, the biggest challenge will also be funding case managers and who would staff any interim solution. So really gearing it towards that, because even some of our homelessness investments in this round aren't really answering that specific question.
Right.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madeline.
And congratulations on your new role.
She was promoted to senior housing planner. I thanked her today for carrying this load by herself in a lot of ways, and thank Kelly as well for what she's done to help, even though we're losing Kelly later this month.
Thank you. Up next, we have a resolution endorsing West Main and Ridge Smart Scale application. Mr. Duncan?
Sharp-dressed city engineer. I like it.
Thank you, councilors. My name is Brennan Duncan. I'm the city engineer. I'm here tonight. I've actually got two items here, so this one and the other one, the next one are very similar. But we're to the point in this project that we are looking for a resolution of support. So quick background here, we started this process way back in 2024. And it's gone through several iterations of data collection, public engagement. We came to you in March, and it has not changed that much since then. We held one more public meeting since March with the downtown business owners to listen to their concerns and see what we could do to either, tweak it as part of this or look at how, we could incorporate that if and when we got funding later on. So that's kind of a quick background of where we're at. But the study and purpose of this was really fourfold. Improve safety for all users, so we're not just looking at cars, we're not just looking at bikes, we're not just looking at pedestrians, but really everyone who is using this. The main, West Main and Ridge intersection is one of the, I would call it the intersection in Charlottesville. It, connects our biggest east-west and north-south corridors. So this is really, really where we're trying to invest some effort here to rethink how this could work for everybody. So with that, we're trying to improve traffic flow and the ease of use for all the users, maintain the pedestal that the statue was on there at one point, just so we can reuse it for whatever may come available, and then develop a competitive smart scale application. And really there's two parts of that. So it has to show benefit of congestion there, and also it has to be cost competitive. So we looked at roundabouts and other things that could be done at this intersection, but really the cost for that just kind of blows up, and we wouldn't be able to put in a competitive application. So here's that timeline I was talking about. So November 2024, we started with the data collection. 2025 in March, we had public survey. April, existing conditions, findings were published. August of last year, we did our first public informational meeting and survey on the three alternatives. January of this year, another public information meeting, feedback collection on our proposed alternative. April was when we came to you all, March we came to you all. April was when we had the meeting with the Downtown Business Association. So here is kind of, I know it's probably hard to see, but this is the preferred alternative. We are showing one-waying of Water Street with a pair for the one-way of South Street. There's a cycle track or a two-way bike facility on Water Street. This goes up to 4th Street, which we're in the process right now. Utilities is starting a large utility project down West Main Street. It's going to take several years, so we're going to be studying West Main Street and hope to be able to continue this facility further to the west. We've had our consultants look at multiple versions of this, almost every iteration I can think of, to come up to this kind of preferred concept to try and address all of the needs through this intersection. So the project benefits, right now we've got a 5-leg intersection. This will create a one-way pair. It decreases delays. We're reducing turning movement conflicts, improve pedestrian safety. We're enlarging the spaces for waiting, leading pedestrian intervals, sufficient crosswalk time at all the controlled crossings, enhanced accessibility for pedestrians and cyclists, expanded protected bikeway, improved right turn visibility, and then improved wayfinding signage. That's kind of italicized there. That we can possibly even do a lot of that before this, we would get the funding for this, but the study just kind of identified where we could do some of those things. So the next steps, so right now we're here this June to August, so the Smart Scale application window is open. We need city council endorsement of the project before we can, submit for it. If and when we get that support from you tonight, we'll do our application, it'll move forward in September through January of this year. Smart Scale applications are assessed by VDOT. By spring of next year, we'll know kind of if we were successful in that bid. It will put it on the 6-year plan, and then that funding for this project will become available in like 2020 or 2033. As I mentioned, 2027, 28, 29, we'll be working on that utility project down West Main Street. So once that's complete, or kind of during that process, we'll be starting a new study process for West Main Street to kind of tie into this project, so that hopefully, we'll be right around the same time, maybe a couple of years difference between when we get this funding and when we would be able to implement something further down West Main Street. So with that, I'm here for any questions that you all had, to answer anything that came out of the public comment. We do have the recommended motion there if you want to move forward with this.
All right, thank you very much. We'll start over here.
Sure. So obviously we've gotten a lot of engagement on this, and I'll fully admit, my bias is, when there's a situation where a change is going to slow down or interfere with vehicular traffic, my bias is towards that's okay, and people will adjust, and that will be beneficial to pedestrians, bikers, and generally be able to work out. But I think some of the questions raised, are worth engaging with. So I'll just read from a little bit of what we were given today from VDOT directly, that we did not collect traffic data at the intersection of South and 2nd Street Southeast, or West Water Street and 2nd Street Southeast, where the one-way portion of West Water Street would end. The study was scoped to consider solutions to the intersection of Ridge, West Main, West Water Street, and so that was outside of the initial traffic collection plan. We have received several comments that there would be issues with traffic on South Street getting backed up when the train is running on the track south of the 2nd Street Southeast intersection. Sorry. The city expressed willingness to remove on-street parking and install a left turn lane on the last block of South Street to prevent the train acting as a barrier. And I also heard a suggestion last night that it may just require installing signage. The discussion I had with the city is that if the project is funded, additional traffic data would need to be collected to determine the appropriate mitigation strategy, but they believed it wasn't required at this time. And again, that's from Sandy Shackelford at VDOT. And so the question from that is, there are elements of this that were not in the scope in terms of assessing impacts, and there was also an identified need for additional traffic data, as well as analyzing what the mitigation strategies would be. Where in the process would those things be done?
So yeah, that's a good question. So again, 2033 would when funding becomes available for this, so we're talking 5-6 years out. At that time, we would kind of engage a new engineer. We'd look at the new existing conditions. It's possible in the next 6 years that new buildings could get built, that traffic patterns in the area could change. We could have some traffic apocalypse, like, I don't know, COVID or something like that, where traffic volumes like completely disappear, or flying cars or whatever else. I don't know. But at that time, we would kind of look at the existing conditions, look at what we can do. I think a lot of the reason that we didn't look at those areas specifically is the volumes are low enough that even if they increase, we're still way lower than a lot of other intersections in the city. There's currently about 2,500 vehicles on South Street. There's about 6,000 vehicles a day on Water Street. So even if we took those eastbound traveling people on Water Street and put them over onto South Street, we're still going to be well below any kind of capacity threshold. So we're not denying there may be some things that we need to consider with trains and that kind of stuff. We just feel like it's something that can be overcome with engineering stuff that's not, it's not going to stop or prohibit us from doing this project. It's not a red flag, I guess, for us that it's not something that can be overcome.
Mm-hmm. And I guess really, I think one of the big things that could change, which I hope changes, is, in the next 10, 15 years, the surface parking lots there could be developed into some sort of mixed-use development with residential and commercial, which would obviously kind of transform traffic patterns. And I hope we see that happen. I think it's very possible we could see that happen. I assume that is not something that's entered into kind of thinking through what that may look like.
So in the traffic study that was done, I mean, they ballooned that. It's a very conservative study, in my opinion. Like I said, there's about 6,000 vehicles a day that are shown on Water Street now. They took that up to nearly 11,000, so almost doubling it, and looking at those traffic volumes, and they still work. They still, we still get congestion benefits and everything else from this project.
Mm-hmm. And so, you kind of already outlined this, but construction itself wouldn't begin until at least 2033?
There's always the possibility we could accelerate that funding, but right now, the 6-year plan would be us getting that funding in 2033.
Mm-hmm. And again, if thinking through the additional traffic studies as well as any mitigation that may be needed, you said that would begin, that would be evaluated in around 2033 before construction begins?
Yeah, we would definitely. So this is what we're presenting tonight is a conceptual plan. In engineer speak, we call it like a 30% design. It's probably not even that, more like 15% design. So we've done enough to kind of look for where those red flags are going to be, make sure things will work, but we're going to move forward and look at it in more detail once the fund. So one of the benefits of this program is all this funding is state and federal. So there's no city funds right now that are going into this. So when 2033 rolls around, we take the money, we enlist an engineering firm to kind of design this with these parameters that are in this study, and look at what needs to be tweaked, what works, what doesn't work, and move forward from there. So there will likely be a 12 to 18 month kind of design period once that money is released to us before any type of construction would occur.
Mm-hmm. And one of the other things we've received emails about, I mean, quite frankly, I have no idea how to evaluate what claims are accurate or not, but a concern is, this could have some interference on the ability for delivery drivers to drop off things to the downtown mall or drop off supplies to businesses there. Is that something that's just kind of outside the scope of work of the analysis that you would do?
No, we're looking at that. We're not taking away any parking at this point. We're not taking away any access to the mall crossings at this point. So I don't really see how that would, a delivery driver might have to come from a different direction, but the actual stopping to do deliveries would be much the same as it is today.
Mm-hmm. I think that is it for me now. Thank you.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
This endorsement is not a commitment to making the change. Is that correct?
We can always pull back our application if we decide that something has changed and we don't want to move forward with it.
Okay. And the question in regards to additional development plans that come to pass get factored in could be a basis for why that changes.
Could be.
Okay.
It could also be an opportunity that we have a plan in place, and if one of those developments happens, that we can ask them to do a portion of that as part of their development.
From a timing standpoint, yes. I always like to spend other people's money. Yes. Okay. Just want to make sure I was understanding what I need to be understanding.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Kind of along the lines of that, I know when you had come to BPAC, we looked at some other recommendations for the two-way bike track and some concerns about how that flows. So if, this may be too in the weeds, let's pretend we win based on this iteration, this 30%. And we make it happen, and we find that there was some unintended consequence that happens from it. Who builds it? Does VDOT build the project out and then we pay for changes to it, or does it, how would that work?
So this is kind of, I'll look forward to it more as a framework than a fully fleshed out design. So there are aspects of this that we have to hit. So we have to do the congestion mitigation because we've got that in our proposal. We have to do the bike ped improvements because we have that in our proposal. Now, which side of the roadway those go on, what exactly they look like, all that is kind of up for change. We just have to make sure that we're hitting kind of those key scoring criteria so that we don't have to, if we change it too much, then it has to go back and get rescored, and that's where we could like lose funding. But as long as we're still hitting those key factors that we're trying to accomplish with this design, we can make those tweaks once we get to that 2033, when we get the money and start kind of fleshing out that design a little more.
And that money is going to, but that money goes to VDOT to do the building, or we hire?
No, the intention with this
Just
would be
use their
that we
money,
would use our own contracts with, basically, we're only getting the money from VDOT from this, unless, we ask them to do the design. But right now, the intent of this is that the city would be enlisting engineers to do this full design, come up with the plans, we would bid it. Our project managers would kind of oversee the project from start to finish. VDOT's involvement from kind of this point forward would only be a financial.
Thank you.
Yep.
So my question, I guess, more than anything else is, what exactly is the problem that this is meant to solve?
So a lot of it is access for multi-modes. We're trying to create some north-south, east-west kind of bike corridors. I mean, if you think of it as you've got highways that are exclusively all for vehicles. We don't allow pedestrians, we don't allow bikes on a highway on one end, and we've got the pedestrian mall on the other, where it's intended fully for kind of pedestrians, and outside of emergency work or whatever, we try and keep vehicles out of it. We're trying to create some of these corridors that are kind of more focused on bicycle infrastructure so that we can, get some multi-modes throughout our city and increase that. So we've got plans right now, or we're planning to expand down West Main Street. Further down Water Street, right now we have the trail that picks up just on the other side of the Belmont Bridge and connects you all the way down to Mead Avenue, Mead Park. So we're trying to kind of make that kind of cross-city connection, for cyclists and pedestrians throughout the city.
So for most of the people who go through that intersection, they would think that a problem at that intersection was basically rush hour vehicular traffic, things backing up, in some cases backing up to the interstate. This will not solve that problem.
So this does get us some congestion mitigation. So
I've looked at the numbers on the figures in here, and maybe I'm not understanding them, but I don't see that the numbers seem to increase maybe 5%, 10% over the next 50 years, 30 years.
For the overall traffic volumes?
I'm just looking at individual numbers.
So
if there are 500 going this way right now, there may get to be about 600 20 years from now.
Right. So we're going to get traffic growth. So what we're really looking at is not, does it get worse from today till 2035 or 2045 or 2055? Because if we get more people in the city and we have more cars, that's going to get worse anyway. What we're really looking at is if we kept the existing condition for the next 20 years and had the traffic growth, comparing that to what it would be with this improvement 20 years from now.
Okay, and maybe I didn't find the right figure for that, but I look at the figure 20 is the no-build design year peak in 2056, so 30 years down the road, compared to existing peak volumes, and that's up about 10 to 15%.
You're talking the future no build
Right,
compared to
right now. Compare
Right.
figure 20
Yes.
to figure 2. Okay? And I didn't see, maybe I'm misunderstanding the figures, but I also saw a 2045 interim year peak volumes. Is that assuming that the project gets built in figure 19?
Correct. Figure 19 would be yes, that would be if this project got built. So those are the two diagrams that you would kind of be comparing if you're looking at a 2045 build for existing conditions versus the proposed conditions.
Okay, and so, but if we're not building anything, we're getting the comparable data would be the 2056 no-build design.
Correct.
There's very little difference between those three, between the numbers on those three charts.
Yeah.
So this is not a traffic congestion issue that this is fixing.
It's mostly the safety factors, the pedestrian enhancements, the bike enhancements, and we're not making, like we're accomplishing all that without making the vehicular traffic worse than it would already be.
So there can still be the same car throughput while having a safer pedestrian,
Right.
bike and pedestrian facility.
It is slightly, you're right, it's not a lot less, but it is slightly less. So we will still score points in the VDOT system by reducing the congestion.
Okay. So.
And that's also making a lot of assumptions.
It is, yes, all
You
of this
know, the
makes a
models
lot
are
of
based,
assumptions.
the models are not based on a Parisian style city engineering plan where you actively build enough bike facilities that people mode shift. These are based on American,
Right.
you know, so we can also decide which policy do we want to go down.
Is
and
there
build the
any,
future.
is there anything in what we have here that attempts to estimate what the effect would be on the number of bike trips 30 years from now? Or is that just too much of an imponderable?
Yeah, I don't think the consultants looked at that as part of this.
Frankly, I would think anything that they would come up with would be like a Ouija board at that point.
Well, maybe not quite a Ouija board. They would be looking at other
Through engagement.
jurisdictions that, you know, have done this type of thing. But, you know, nationwide, like, we are on kind of the front edge of this. Like, I know a lot of our bike advocates ask for more and more, but we're doing a lot. Like, we're kind of doing a lot more than, you know, Joe Q City in America right now when it comes to this. So there aren't a whole lot of other cities, you know, for us to, and a lot of them are only doing this in the last 15 or 20 years. So, you know, when we're trying to project out 30 years, you know, it's hard to do that because we don't know all the effects of that.
So one of the effects, one of the main ways, I guess, that you're going to get some of the effects that you want is by making it so that we treat Water Street and South Street as effectively two sides of the same street.
Correct.
Wouldn't it be easier to leave Water Street as is, dead end South Street, so that it doesn't come into the five-way intersection at all? And then if you want to send, if you want to make that purely a bike ped route, you could do so. And then you don't have any issues. I mean, you could have South Street accessible by a turn off of 2nd Street or something like that. But the point is, it wouldn't be getting into the five-way intersection. And that would allow the concerns that the folks on the mall have for not being able to find the mall. Somebody's on South Street isn't going to logically find the mall. And I can tell you from 30, 40 years ago, that was an actual serious problem.
I would believe that 30, 40 years ago, but almost everyone has a cell phone and maps on their phone right now. I mean, we've had the crossings closed now for a couple months while we're redoing the mall crossings for the vehicles. And I was down there last weekend of last Friday in May, and it's as busy as I've ever seen it. Surprise, surprise, people can still find it even though those crossings are not active currently. But again, I think we should do more on the wayfinding. I look at Winchester and Boulder, Colorado, and other cities who have successful pedestrian malls. A lot of them have, big gateway entrances onto the mall. We don't. Maybe that's something we should look at doing, that to get people as they're driving down the street to realize, hey, this is an entrance to pedestrian mall. So I think we can accomplish both. Like it's not they don't have to be mutually exclusive. And to the point, I guess, with South Street, it's room really is what we've got on-street parking because several of those old houses, businesses that are in there now either don't have driveways or, don't have sufficient driveways in there.
The Midway Manor bus stop.
We've got our bus stop in there now for Midway Manor. There's just not enough width to get everything we need on South Street from a multimodal standpoint. If we tried to do it as a bike kind of corridor there, either we'd have to remove parking or, we just have to remove parking. And you can't get two-way traffic and have a bike corridor in there and have parking. We'd be taking property. The thing that's in our favor on Water Street is it is really wide. The right-of-way that we have on Water Street compared to most of our other streets gives us the opportunity to do something like this.
Well, I think that the concerns of the folks on the mall not only have some historical justification, but have some present justification, because one of the points that I've tried to make in my years of advocacy for the mall is that it is the reason why it has continued to be successful is because the city has continued to invest in it year after year after year, which many people who put in malls wound up not investing further, whether it's in our case building the Omni or subsidizing the building of the Omni or the pavilion or all the other things that have happened ever since. So it's the investment of money we put into it. It's also, I agree with the people who spoke earlier who said that in 1996, when it was made more visible and easier to find, that made a significant difference. I think right now, as I look at the mall, even assuming 3 weeks from now that the crossovers are all fine and everything is back to normal, still a lot of vacancies down there, and it is not I think it's holding on, but I wouldn't say it's truly healthy at the moment. And the only good news out of all of this is that whatever we talk about tonight isn't going to happen for at least 7 years. And maybe in the next 7 years we'll figure something out. But I'm concerned about that. I'm also concerned that one of the constraints, I remember we ran into this on the MPO when I was on the MPO 5 years ago, was trying to figure out when we could expand the scope of a project or of a study of a project. And one of the things that we were told as we were looking at that point at the intersection of Preston and 10th Street and Grady and so on was that we wanted to extend the area that could be subject to the traffic improvements by a couple of blocks down Preston Avenue. And we're told, no, you can't do that. Once you've set the footprint has to stay. And so if we're going to put this in, let's put in a bigger footprint. Let's put in a footprint that goes down to the 2nd Street parking garage.
It does.
Right? Well, that's not what any of these maps that I see indicate. If that's the case, then great. But
yeah, I mean, we're proposing improvements all the way down to the garage there on Water Street. So from 2nd Street all the way up, across to 4th Street on the west side, and then, 150, 200 feet kind of in the north and south.
I think the concern people raise is it not evaluating the relevant intersections and then not going down South Street far enough.
I mean, it takes it the full length of South Street, so, if we're going to do any changes, that's kind of already in that overall kind of project area.
I mean, I have no idea what the future holds for those parking lots, although looking at it, certainly within the lifespan of the kinds of drawings you've got here, it would certainly seem highly likely that they will be very large buildings in the meantime, with a lot of people either working or living there, and a lot of people therefore presumably trying to get there. I think that the fears that the folks on the mall have about the health of the mall are legitimate fears, and I don't think that the notion that maybe we'll get a few more folks on bikes coming down there is going to solve their problem, particularly in the next 10 years, or maybe in the next 30 years. I can't predict what the future would hold that far out, but I've got real concerns that I don't think that this, I don't know what it's actually going to serve. B, I know it's not going to serve what most people perceive to be the problem there. And C, I don't think it's well thought out in terms of what the demands are going to be on that road network over the next 10 to 15 years.
Any other comments?
People raise this in public comment, and I think demonstration projects, you mentioned the temporary shutdown of the cross sections on the downtown mall, which inadvertently has been like a case study of how that may play out. There's a lot of fear around the change, and I understand that because, local business owners are not necessarily, the richest people in the world, and they have a lot of money and time invested in their businesses. So it's a very emotional, personal thing. All of which is to say, is it practical or possible for the city to do a demonstration project, making it one way on a temporary basis and just seeing this is what it looks like, and kind of removing some of that fear of the unknown? Or is that just not realistic?
No, I think that's 100% realistic. If that's something that council wants us to do, you can give that direction to Sam, and he'll direct us to make it happen. So depending on the length of time that it would take, to do, we could do it pretty quick and simple if we're just doing, a couple weeks or a month to test it out. If it's, 6 months or a year, the cost of the materials, we might be asking for some funding to do it, but I think there's definitely a possibility to do something like that. And I'll say, like you said with the mall crossings, we inadvertently tested one way on Water Street for almost a year for the Belmont Bridge. So, it was one way already for a significant portion of time. I know that's kind of a little bit further down, but effectively it was a one-way roadway at that point.
Of course, the part that was one way, it was not the part we're talking about here.
No, but the people who would normally travel eastbound on Water Street no longer could. Like, the vast majority of people who continue down Water Street towards the transit center, and they would have to make that right on 2nd Street and head back over to Garrett, if they were making it.
Yeah, I don't know how many people that is, but
I can tell you in a second if you want. At least according to the counts that they did, maybe. Actually, no, they didn't count that one, so I can get that number for you later if you're interested.
Well, I have no idea how practicable or easy it is, but I do think it would be interesting to have a demonstration project, even if it's just a period for a few weeks, a month or so, to be able to see it. And I think that would take away some of the fear. And if it turns out maybe it is a, traffic disaster, we would see and know at that point. But if it is a very unreasonable or cumbersome thing, then, I don't think there's a need to like make it top priority or anything in the city. But again, I think a lot of it just comes from the fear of, what if?
I think that's a very astute observation. There's a fear and there's a what if. And I think also you saying that we can't predict the future. There's certain things, obviously, we can't predict, but we can shape and build the future that we want more decisively. If we hedge, I don't want to hedge. I don't want to hedge on our commitment to designing and engineering a city that makes better multimodal plans, builds safer streets, and facilitates better land use choices. Every study that you can find pretty much shows that when you pedestrianize, when you reduce car speeds, when you do road diets, when you see multi-lane streets that were then turned into slower streets, revenue increased for all of the shops on those streets. So there is an amount that we do know that what if has been taken out of the equation because we might be on the forefront a little bit, but we are not inventing any wheels here.
Correct.
In America or abroad, there are plenty of case studies for these types of projects that we can look to, that we can see, that our VDOT teams know about, that our internal teams know about. So there's not a lot of I don't knows for something like this in general. Cars whizzing by don't spend money. People lollygagging, people who live nearby, those folks are the ones spending money, and those who can find easy parking. And there's nothing easier to park than a bike or being a pedestrian. So we get to build the future that we want. We get to set these policies. We had a demonstration project, as you mentioned, when the Belmont Bridge was underway and Water Street was closed. We had a more recent demonstration project when, was it like a transformer exploded and Water Street was completely shut down for a period of time?
Yeah, a pole was hit.
Yeah, right, the pole was hit, and that had to be, and as someone existing.
Are you equating that as a success?
I'm talking about it being a demonstration project of that street being interrupted.
And that worked?
I don't know if you spent any time down there on it, but it was lovely. To exist in that space without, and I do bike, as I make no secret about, often up Water Street. Most of the traffic goes up Water Street anyway, and the amount of times I've had to, we had a public commenter earlier today say both that Water Street is not very busy, and
the added traffic on South Street from Water Street would, yeah.
Yes, thank you. Those things are not quite reconcilable. And while it is relatively a quiet-ish street, so it's going to be less of an effect than, if we did this to 250, which I know we can't. But even though it is a quiet street, I, as a bicyclist who uses that street to get here sometimes and uses it almost daily for whatever meetings I have downtown, have to yell at cars frequently who are pulling out without looking, who are rolling through stops, who are verging into traffic, again, without looking, and probably more frequently than even on West Main Street. And so creating a safer space for bicyclists is both safer and more useful. There's a urban planner and urbanist, a city planner and an urbanist. If you've spent any time in the city planning space, you'll recognize his name, Brent Todurian, who has a famous quote that says, "You can't justify a bridge by the number of people swimming across a river." Meaning, what you have now is not necessarily the model you use for what you want or what you can do. They didn't see, a lot of people are swimming across the English Channel, let's build a tunnel. I mean, a lot of people were trying to take boats, but you build what you want to see. We get to build the future that we want. And the future that I want, that I've made no secret about since I started being in the public eye, is one that is more multimodal, which doesn't mean we are forcing bikes and pedestrianism on people, but it means that there's more options for more people so that you don't have to be car dependent. We also had a mention in our public comments earlier about baby boomers who are going to age out of driving and needing to create a safe way for them to get around, for apartment buildings to go in so people can live closer to the community where they want to be. More people does not necessitate more cars if we do it right. And by inducing demand, which works for cars, as demonstrated by every road is a demonstration project on that front, induced demand works across modes as well. We can induce demand for different choices by making different policies. I appreciate you, maybe without realizing it, suggesting we turn South Street into a Woonerf. I would like a Woonerf. It's a Dutch term for a slow street with traffic calming, chicanes, with planters, with road furniture, with a style that automatically, by design, reduces car speeds, so it is more of a shared street for everyone who needs to use it. That is something that I would love to see an actual demonstration project somewhere in the city. I know we've talked about that before. But I really appreciate your comments about wayfinding and addressing those concerns in a way that doesn't involve cars. We can add signage, we can add entrances. I've sent around pictures of during our Chapel Hill trip, we got a tour of their alleys that they had made, cut-throughs between really long blocks. And they, in order to make them welcoming, they put in archways that titled each alley. That is placemaking, that is defining areas and spaces in a way that is built for people, not for vehicles. So I think that's something we have to keep in mind is what is our unit of governance? It's a person. And making sure we have space for people to exist, to get around safely. It is not the vehicle. So I think we can address being able to find them all in ways that are outside of the scope of this project. We should do that sort of stuff anyway. And again, that doesn't have to wait for 6-8 years. And then, I've heard the mall is dying my whole life.
I didn't say it was dying, I said it's fragile.
No, yes, I appreciate that. We hear that bandied about quite frequently. I've been hearing that my whole life. I remember when there was the two-waying of the previous one-way streets, and how this differs from that is we have the ability to make policy choices with more information and with a different goal in mind. We cannot keep building space to fit cars in a land-constrained locality. So what can we do differently is actually facing the truth of what's in front of us. Is our land-constrained borders that get eaten up every time a certain local partner in some things, entity purchases land. We can build up, we can build infill, we can reduce the space that we give to cars so that we can build the community within our city limits, we can reduce traffic, we can reduce emissions, we can get people where they need to go faster, more safely, and we don't become a parking lot for the county. That involves regional partnerships outside of the scope of this project, park and rides, a more expanded transit network, that sort of thing. But this is a piece of that. This is part of building that future that we want. And we've seen Water Street one way recently. We should keep in mind the benefits of increasing bike access also improves car drivers' experiences. If you are the 10th in line for a red light, you're gonna be 10th in line. If 5 of those people make another choice, now you're closer. So even though you are not choosing a bike lane or a bike lifestyle, your life has still improved and traffic congestion has been reduced. This is part of that. This doesn't fix it as one project, but it is part of a network we should be working towards enthusiastically. I mentioned Paris before. I know people say, we're not Paris. That is a policy choice. we can make similar decisions and we could get there sooner. They have radically transformed their network in the last 10, 15 years. That's not 50 years,
We
which is
also
what
have
Amsterdam
4
chose.
times the density of population.
Again, a policy choice.
You want 48,000 per square mile?
It's a policy choice.
Okay.
So if there's people living in the 2 parking lots that are in the area we're talking about, they have access to proximity. Proximity means they don't have to get in a car every time they need something. That's what density
Right.
buys.
Well, in terms of process, let's say we approve what's in front of us tonight. Likely, at the earliest, construction would begin in 2033, so a gap of 7 years, potentially longer than that, and maybe we don't even get awarded funding. So in that interim, maybe there's still utility for a demonstration project, even if we approve it tonight, because in that gap of the 7 years, from VDOT, they acknowledge themselves additional traffic data would need to be collected to determine appropriate mitigation strategies. Maybe that helps us just get a head start on being able to do that and see, collect data on how it plays out, and also see on some of the surrounding intersections, does that create a need for new mitigation to improve safety there if the flow changes in some way? So that just seems like a reasonable potential process.
So are you suggesting that even if we pass this tonight, we still should do a demonstration project in the meantime?
I think there could be utility there, because it would help us collect the data, and we know from what VDOT said, there's going to be, again, that need for mitigation.
Yeah.
And
And
the gap is just going to be so many years.
Well, and I think what's useful about that potentially is the bulk of the expense of this project is the Ridge-McIntyre intersection portion.
Correct.
And the Water Street portion is something that's going to be definitely less intense infrastructure-wise. There's not going to need to be earth movement. It's
It's more of a restriping
It's essentially a restriping and maybe a curb input. So, so that is something we could do before and then even harden before and have it.
I don't know that we could harden it, just because the improvements that are needed at the intersection are kind of
Sure,
tied to
okay.
this, so.
So maybe not all the way up there. Yeah.
At least not, so we could, to your point, we could do a demonstration project just to take away the vehicles. It would be more difficult to make it a true kind of bikeway and have all the infrastructure that we need for the bikes up at the intersection. But we could at least model the vehicular part of this, in real time, and say either it works or it doesn't work, or find out where where are those pinch points that we need to design
Right, if we're
for.
open to be flexible about it, some of the concerns from, we understand the business community's concerns. We have heard that. We also want the downtown mall to succeed beyond whatever level it's ever achieved. That should go without question. That is a pride and joy of the city. It is a gem. It is the central hub and the central placemaking feature of Charlottesville. I've been in cities that are very similar to Charlottesville, and they don't have something like that, and you feel truly like, where do I go? What is this? There's no base, there's no home base, and the downtown mall is the mothership of the city. So of course we want to protect that. But if we can do a demonstration project in the meantime and address some concerns also from the bike ped community with the interactions at the intersections or the bus stop or the larger intersection at the top, that's also valuable. I think all of that is made possible by the fact that we do vote yes on this tonight. Because of the scale of the smart scale timeline, it does take so long that, losing this opportunity sets us back several years.
In recognizing, if council voted in the affirmative tonight, it's likely at least a 7-year process that also still has uncertainty in terms of funding awards. What, if anything, would be needed to indicate, our desire to have at some point between, now and the next 7 years before construction would begin a demonstration project? Would that be needed incorporated in the vote tonight? Would that need to be a vote at a later date? Would that just be an indication from council, of a general, goal?
Let me offer on behalf of your concerned public that I would say that you make that an addition to this endorsement, that you make that as a request. Because if you're taking that as a vote, if you were to pass the authorization to submit this, basically the endorsement, and you want a demonstration project, that is your way tonight to say to your public that, and we want a demonstration just so that we can see. That has to be scoped, budgeted, and brought back to you for approval anyway, because there's no money sitting waiting for that use. And then we can make sure that we put together the right approach to doing a project like that. I have many thoughts, as he knows I do.
So it's a strong request, but we can't condition because we don't know about money and that sort of thing.
Well, I mean, I think you can because we know that we can pay for it. I just think to me, what I'm saying to you is you've heard opposition to this. If you're going to endorse it, then at least make the endorsement also conditioned on the idea of a demonstration so that at least people will recognize that we are going to prioritize getting a demonstration project.
I would like to point out, we have heard opposition to it. We've also heard a lot of support for it.
Correct.
A lot of support.
Right.
Especially in January when it first came up, and then we added an additional public meeting to reach out to even more folks. So we've heard one side tonight, but we've heard both sides throughout the last 6 months.
Yep, express the support for the demonstration as a part of this action. I think that's ultimately what I'm suggesting to you.
Okay.
Well, in that case, I would move a resolution endorsing West Main and Ridge Smart Scale application, including as part of that at some point between now and construction.
A city-sponsored demonstration.
That there be a city-sponsored demonstration. I don't know if that is clear enough to give direction, but.
To me, at least.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All right, let's pull up our voting pages. All right, the project passes 3-1 with the bonus note.
All right.
Thank you.
And I got
Next
another
item?
one. Yeah. Remy, if you can put up the presentation again. All right. So the second one, this one is not in the city. This is a MPO request, but it's the same thing. They're asking for resolution of approval for what they are submitting. So what they're submitting is Barracks Road and 250 on-off ramps. So this is extending the on-off ramp to connect Leonard Sandridge to Barracks Road along 250, constructing a second left turn lane at the Barracks Road northbound exit, constructing sidewalk on the south side of Barracks under the bridge, and connecting that new sidewalk on the north and south sides of Barracks via two median refuge crosswalks on either side of that. This addresses corridor of statewide significance, being 29 North and 250, improving capacity need on regional networks, improvements to support the urban development area in the county, improvements to address the VTrans specified safety need. So this is kind of where that is. So this is Leonard Sandridge on the left-hand side of the page here. As you come off of that onto 250 right now, you merge into the 3 lanes or the 2 lanes that are there, and then immediately, you've got about a third of a mile right now of condensed lane, and then it gets back into the turn lane to get onto Barracks. So it's just really connecting that, so it'll be one kind of off-ramp, on-ramp for that. Today, they experience backups regularly coming off of Barracks Road, into those through lanes on 250. So they're just trying to mitigate that safety need there on 250. So this is coming to the off ramp here, and then really at the intersection as it comes off. Right now, there are 2 lanes. There's a right turn lane and a left turn lane. This is putting in a second left turn lane as there's a predominant movement going that way. And the right turns can kind of turn right on red right now. So it does add, right now, there's no pedestrian crossings in this area, and actually the sidewalk stops kind of on the southeast side as you're approaching from the city portion. So this connects that kind of through and under the Barracks Road 250 bypass and allows you to connect back over into the other lane or other side. So similarly, they're looking for the endorsement by City Council here of their thing. Same timeline, September for the applications, and then spring next year for whether they would find out if they were successful in theirs. So similar motion here, moving to City Council approve the attached resolution of support for the Charlottesville Albemarle MPO Smart Scale 2026 application.
All right, any questions? We'll start over here this time.
Me?
Mm-hmm.
How does this improvement impact the Ravenna Trail?
I don't know that it would. Because the RTF crosses, well, I guess you would be able to come off of the RTF. Right now, it kind of crosses Barracks Road in the city portion. So if you were trying to get from that northwest portion of Albemarle of this intersection, over, right now, you don't really have a way to do that. This would make that connection from that neighborhood up in Bennington and Ricky Drive and all that kind of stuff over into the city.
With the sidewalk build?
With the sidewalk and those pedestrian crossings.
Okay. That's it for me.
Where is the Ravenna Trail in that area?
It's just off the screen to the east here. It comes down Cedars Court, I believe.
Okay.
And then there's a access that goes up into the ball field or whatever there on UVA property.
By the bank and
I just realized I know where the trail is in most of the places.
If anyone would like to find out more about the entire trail, Loop de Ville happens the last week of September, including this section.
I have no questions.
Michael?
No, I mean, I assume that it was endorsed by the MPO means.
Yes.
That there generally weren't significant issues. The only questions I would really have would be to our 2 counselors who are MPO board members, is if you're in your review there were issues you saw with it. If not, I'm fully ready to support it.
I will say that, so our policy, our tech board worked on this and endorsed it and supported it, and then came up to us, and the MPO as a whole did support this, but not without some concerns, making sure that the pedestrian facility, the shared use path, the bike and pedestrian facility was included as much as possible. The pedestrian refuge islands were, I still wish they were a little more navigable, where that was discussed. Jen, would you like to add anything else?
No, I think I was.
Yeah, there were some concerns about UVA, or was that the other ramp extension? That was the other one.
Yeah.
Okay. We're generally not stoked about, it's a weird role to be in when you're trying to push for bike pedestrian infrastructure on a board that is dedicated mostly to a car infrastructure project process. So we were happy to see the shared use path in there, and hope that kind of bike and pedestrian facility is included more and more in VDOT projects, and with more and more enthusiasm. Was that helpful?
Yes.
Thanks. All right. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Is there a motion?
I would move the resolution endorsing the submission of Smart Scale HB2 applications requesting transportation funding by localities as presented in the packet.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, let's go ahead and vote. All right, the motion passes 4-0. And now we have an opportunity for our final speaking moment for members of the public. Individuals may raise your hand to be recognized to speak. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes. Please don't forget to state your name and place of residence. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Yes, please.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and Council. My name is Rachel Flynn. Longtime on and off resident of Belmont, but now I'm on again. Come back to the city and learning a lot about what you all are doing. I have no complaints. I have no asks. You're going to fall off your chairs. I actually want to thank you for what you do. I think you all are remarkable. I think you really work hard to consider what the people of Charlottesville want. I know that how challenging it is to meet so many demands from citizens. As a former municipal executive myself, I know what you're up against, how you have to prepare for meetings like you obviously did tonight, community meetings all the time, phone calls, emails, and clearly you all really do your homework and really pay attention. And I know it's not easy to make these difficult decisions, whether it's land use, infrastructure like tonight, the unhoused like came up tonight, budget, taxes. These are really difficult decisions, and you all do it very thoroughly with grace, and I really appreciate it as a citizen. I know you don't always agree, and that is tough, but God bless democracy, right? I also wanted to thank you for the work that city staff does. They're really remarkable. I came in, I don't know, a month or two ago, and was trying to talk to someone about land use, and couldn't really find my way, so I went to the city manager's office, and a lovely woman named Terry Bentley walked me down the hall and told me, here's who you want to talk to, and she didn't need to do that. She could have said, go down there and press the doorbell, but she didn't, and it was very thoughtful. I called in for pothole repairs. They were repaired, wait for it, the next day. Nobody does that. I just haven't seen it. I couldn't believe it. I went and talked to Missy Creasy because I wanted to know more about the development code, the comp plan, affordable housing ordinance, and she really took the time to explain it. I know that with the lawsuit, it was complicated to a lot of people, including me, and she was able to tell me about it and where I had to go. Patrick, who always answers the phone, customer service, I'm sorry I don't know his name, but Patrick here always knows, gets me to that right person. I mean, people don't answer the phone anymore, but your people do. It's really remarkable. I can't emphasize that enough. Mike Graff and utilities, he and I had a great discussion about sewers, and he really helped me understand some things. Matt Alfley, if you want to know what the zoning requirements are, the height, the number of units, the setbacks, the number of parking spaces, you name it, that guy will call you back. If he doesn't already answer the phone, he will get that email back to you. And he's so thorough and very patient. And then there's Joyce Pattison, who is just lovely. I think she's been here since the Civil War, I'm not sure. And I call her all the time. I've been calling her for years. And she'll walk me through something, tell me how to get to a property and figure out the assessment. Jeff Werner, Historic Preservation. I was trying to find some old drawings, and he wasn't really sure, but his files are incredibly organized, and he took the time to go through it. And then 2 days later, he called me back. He said, you know, I looked somewhere else, and I found what you were looking for. He didn't need to do that. And so I just really want to let you know what a good staff you have and how much I appreciate what you all are doing. I could use your help on urban forestry. I'm not sure who handles that here.
He's great too.
Steve Gaines.
I'm afraid I do have to cut you off in the interest of fairness, but can we count on you to come back at the next meeting and keep going?
No, I'm done. I just have
Thank you so much.
Belmont Association of Reforestation, BIRF.
Did you send an
Clever,
email?
huh?
Did you send an email previously?
I've sent them to
What's your name again?
Rachel Flynn.
Okay.
I sent them
We
to
can,
Mike Alfley. No, I
No.
didn't send an email
No.
for
no,
reforestation.
but I can make the connection for you tomorrow.
Okay, what's his name?
Steve Gaines, he's our urban forester.
Steve Gaines. Okay, I can find him.
Thanks.
Great, thank you all, and thanks for what you do. I know this is not easy, but
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Any further business from anyone? All right, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor say yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thanks, everybody.